Blog Talk Radio.
What's the reason? 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 Reason for the treason? What's the reason? What's the reason for the treason? Huh?
You must be out your motherfucking mind to assume your puppet masters ain't planning their disaster and doom. The very moment you pop out of your mom's womb, you're a sovereign king ready to blossom and bloom. However, things change for the absolute worst when you're issued a live certificate of birth, and that number is given to you before you're dribbling. That's when you become a United States citizen. Slavery has been abolished. I know that you heard the news, but the 14th Amendment, voluntary servitude. Once you register your child, you make a major alteration. You are now employed by United States Corporation. The Constitution thereby becomes a fiction. You can't mention it in any statutory jurisdiction. They hoodwink masses of people something awful. Just cause something's legal doesn't mean that it is lawful. It's time for me to change from being what I am. Through the years I feel the need like any other man. But what will I become? What am I to find?
What's the reason for the treason? Huh? You wanna die?
I see no reason, baby, I'm blind.
What's the reason for the treason? Huh?
I see no reason,
What's the reason?
I see no rhyme.
What's the reason?
I see no reason,
What's the reason?
I see no reason to waste my precious time.
What's the reason for the treason? You wanna die?
Best believe I believe in the life I'm leading. I'm a freedom fighter, I'm a fight for freedom. I'm the type that'll put a knife to the windpipe of a tyrant. Leaving bleeding, yeah. And I see no reason to keep accepting these acts of treason. To keep on eating the food they feeding. To keep believing the shit they preaching. Why? Because it's always lies, and when they caught, they don't even apologize. So when they open up their mouths, I tend to tune them out. I don't even pay attention when I see them speaking. Yeah, we gotta be the change. Rearrange the system and let freedom reign. From sea to sea, friend, it's a brand new season. No more living like a slave. I don't see no reason.
I see no reason, baby, I'm blind. I see no reason, I see no rhyme. I see no reason, I see no reason, I see no reason to waste my precious time.
Hello, welcome to NWO Truth Radio. This is your co-host, Sean Auten. We're headed tonight by James Ward. It's his first show. And tonight we have, it's our honor to have Mr. Rob Johnson. Rob, you with us?
Yes, I am.
All right. It's a pleasure to have you here tonight, sir.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. It's been a while since I've gotten on a radio show, and I was looking forward to slapping something together soon, and then you guys contacted me, and everything just worked out right.
Right on. Well, without further ado, James, this is your show. Take it away.
All right. So we got Rob Johnson with us. He wrote the book Sui Juris, Law of Full Age. And it's all about reclaiming your sovereignty, which has been taken from us through manipulation and misinformation we were given as, our whole lives basically growing up. So why don't we start with just a quick rundown of what your book's about there, Rob?
That's one of the reasons I love talking about this stuff, and I absolutely do love what I do. I have to say, I earn my living doing this. This is what I do. I teach people what their rights are, and I am one of the few people who actually get to live the Sui Juris lifestyle that I talk about because I've done all of this already. And everything that I teach is something I've done myself. And it's just all about exercising the rights you have when you are born. It's all very simple, and I always know where to begin because there's a very firm beginning with this subject. And every time you're signing away your rights, it's in some kind of a contract with the state, usually bearing one of three words: registration, submission, and application. Basically, you're begging the state for something to sacrifice your right in exchange for a privilege. And no one has any idea what they're doing. People have no idea that when they engage in lawful activities under a license, they're not exercising a right at all. They're exercising a privilege, one that can be taken any time by the discretion of the grantor for no reason or any reason.
Yeah, I mean, so what are some of the rights that we have that we register for? I know that driving your car and
the rights
what
of
about
the individual are absolutely unlimited. It's a matter of what rights don't we have is the better question. It's easier to answer. The only thing you don't have a right to do is harm someone, to cause actual damage or injury to person or property, actual violation of someone's rights, or to use fraud in your contract. Those are the only things you cannot do. Anything else is a lawful activity, and it's a natural, fundamental right to engage in those activities from birth. Only children and slaves have to ask permission to do that which is lawful.
Okay. Well, so
you can go over every
Constitution,
single activity that there is, whether it's hunting, fishing, pet ownership, having a baby, getting married, traveling in your automobile. All of these licensed, privileged activities, there are two things existing simultaneously. It is not one or the other. There are rights and there are privileges. When you engage in these activities without a license, without registration, you're accepting responsibility for your activities, for yourself, to cause no harm to others when you're engaging in these activities. When you engage in them under a license, you're not accepting responsibility at all. You're not exercising a right at all. You're claiming a privilege of limited liability protection where you can pay money. Exercising rights is a very big responsibility. People need to understand that. But it also is a very liberating thing.
So the contracts we don't sign, like your Social Security and your birth certificate,
right? Let's be clear about
are those
this.
frauds?
Any kind of a contract that's a benefit to you is not going to be introduced upon you via fraud. I mean, what they're doing is they're portraying these registration contracts as mandatory prerequisite obligations to exercising rights, and that's just not how it is. These are voluntary, privileged contracts. Every single registration contract is voluntary. There is no such thing as a requirement of law to sign your property and rights over to the state in order to acquire the lawful authority to use, exercise, and enjoy those rights and properties. It cannot exist. You cannot both have a right to own property and then an obligation to sign it away. So that is what it all comes down to, is the supreme law of the land. And the common law is the supreme law of the land. There is the rights that we all share as a people in equal capacity. And we all have a duty to claim and exercise those rights.
Well, Rob, if you don't mind explaining to the listeners how they hoodwinked us.
What's that? Explain how they hoodwinked us?
Yeah.
There has been a very well-financed and a very concentrated, deliberate agenda make no mistake, this is not the people's fault that they have been deceived. This is part of a very, very well-crafted, clever plan to get people to act like slaves while believing they are free.
Indeed.
The way they've done it is the way they always do it, with fear. They introduce fear and make you believe that only they can save you. And then they introduce the solution to the problem that they caused.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be clear. License on the roads, license does not make the roads safer. They give this license to any idiot. It doesn't matter who you are. It's about them making money. Our rights were never intended to become a revenue stream for the state. This has become a blank check with which they fund these ambitions to further oppress us.
Right. Now, what does the license represent in reality? I mean,
what it represents in reality is a privilege to use state property. In your registration contract, you signed over absolute ownership of the property that you registered, whether it was your car, your child, your relationship, your snowmobile. Whatever it is you register, you sign over to the state. You abandon it. Registration is an act of abandonment in maritime admiralty. And they, of course, then happily seize what you abandon. And then they license it back to you under a privileged use contract. Those privileged contracts, the terms and conditions, for example, of the registration contract for your car is the Motor Vehicle Code. It's not law. It's an agreement you've entered into by your own signed consent. They've made you believe that that was an obligation of law to enter into, but you had a right to engage in that activity from the beginning.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
So what about the contracts we were signed to at birth? Do we have?
You're not bound by any contract that was entered into before you were the age of 18, the lawful age of consent.
So.
And even if you did sign one of these contracts, it was undoubtedly portrayed to you as an obligation of law, which is constructive fraud. It's void ab initio to the date it was signed retroactively anyway. It doesn't exist. All there is a presumption and assumption that you're consenting to agree to these contracts. But then they will hold the title, the absolute ownership of the property, as surety against you for your compliance to those terms and conditions. Like when an officer seizes a car on the road that's registered right now, he can't do that usually if it was unregistered. The only reason he can seize it is because it already belongs to the state. He's not violating your Fifth Amendment right to due process of law and depriving you of property, absent conviction of a jury of your peers. He's taking state property out of your possession, not your property. Same thing with Child Protective Services. You've signed your child over to the state. They're not taking your child away from you. They're taking their child back from you.
Right.
This is how they actually see it.
That's right, though. I mean, he's exactly right. I came across this a couple of months ago. I had my nephew living with me, and I just purchased a book, and I was reading up about halfway through it whenever he borrowed my car one night to go pick my son up and got pulled over by the law, and
yeah.
They impounded my car. They took him to jail because he didn't have a license. And, yes, my car was registered to the state, and so you're exactly right.
Hold on a second now. Let's be clear about something real quick. Did you give him permission to use that car?
No.
Whose car was it?
Mine.
Okay, you're supposed to say yes. That way he did have license, because license is just permission. That's all it is.
Yeah.
License can be granted by anyone who has the authority to give permission to use.
Oh, okay.
So you can license your son to use your car. Absolutely. You don't have, your son, the same thing happened with me recently. When I had my own car, it was unregistered the whole bit. I never got pulled over. But I was driving my wife's truck, which was registered. But I'm not bound by her agreements. I have her permission to use the car. That's all I need.
Right.
But anyway, I explained how I beat all my tickets with that and everything. And if it were anyone else that got pulled over in that situation that I was in, the car would have been impounded. But because I know how to assert and exercise my right, I didn't even try.
Right.
So what do you say to a cop once you've gotten rid of all the contracts and stuff? What kind of verbiage do you use when when you get pulled over?
As little as possible. I mean, honestly, they never even pulled me over when I had my own car with no registration in place or anything. That whole year and 9 months, they never pulled me over once in my own car with that. Because
with no
of my reputation precedes me. They know who I am. It's a big city, but they know who I am because I'm one amongst very few who do things this way. When I say my reputation precedes me, it's because I've served notices upon the sheriff of the county already. The way most people would serve a notice, I serve them through the notary public the right way. So the sheriff of the county has notices coming to him from a notary public, which is crazy. The notary is the highest ally in your deck. They're ranked above a justice of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I didn't know that until I read Sui Juris. I was completely
It's
shocked when I
absolutely
saw
different when you have a notary public sending notices to a sheriff that you're claiming rights than if you're just sending them yourself. What everyone has to do is they have to educate their notary public, get them to do their job the way they're supposed to do it, and if they don't do their job the way they're supposed to do it, you prosecute them. They don't get to pick and choose when they will perform notarial duties. It's like a judge saying, I'm sorry, I can't enter a judgment for you today. I never bothered to learn how to enter a judgment. You can file criminal charges against them for dereliction of duty. You can have their bond if they have a bond. You can file charges against them civilly. You can sue them financially for malfeasance, misfeasance. You can really take them to the cleaners if they don't do their job. And they need to know this. And as soon as they do know this, they were all too happy to comply with what I was asking them to do at the notary's office.
Right.
You just have to be able to convincingly deliver a threat that you're going to file criminal charges if they do not comply with what you're asking them to do. And then simultaneously showing them what you're asking them to do is authorized for them to do by specific law.
That's awesome, man. So
it's really not hard to do. People just have to learn how to grow a spine, articulate and defend their rights verbally. I mean, if someone cannot even assert their freedom and rights to another, do they even have them?
No.
Exactly.
So do you...
It's just like when you get arrested. That officer wants you to believe that he's reading you your rights. They only read you two rights. They want you to believe that in this free world you have two rights when you're arrested, that you have a right to shut up and that you have a right to have some fool of England in your corner. What they tell you is you have a right to an attorney, which is not correct. Right. No one in this country has a right to an attorney. What you have a right to is assistance of counsel, which is anyone you believe is competent to advise you in matters of law.
What is an attorney?
You do have a right to remain silent, but you don't ever want to exercise your right to remain silent when you're arrested, especially if they're telling you you only have two rights. First thing you want to say is, no, officer, I do not accept that you have the authority to tell me what my rights are at all, let alone that I only have two. If they were going to read me my rights, it would be a very long, time-consuming event because they would be there all night listing every one of them.
But what is an attorney, Rob? I mean, tell our listeners what an attorney really is.
An attorney is someone who is going to turn your property into their property. No, seriously though, an attorney is the tool of the Crown of England. Every single attorney licensed to practice law in this country, every single branch of the bar, even the American bar, these are all just franchisee branch locations of a British corporation. Whether bar actually means British Accreditation Registry or not, That is what this organization is by virtue of what it does. It accredits attorneys to practice law and keeps a central registry through their title of nobility, which is exchanged for oath of allegiance. These people are swearing an oath of allegiance to a foreign king, to the Crown of England, in exchange for esquire, that noble title. These people are not sworn to protect American law. They are sworn to protect what they call in the law society law, which is just a language. You have to understand, when they're talking about law, they're talking about their language, not the rights we all share. They're talking about their code.
Right.
And it's every time it doesn't apply to you, it has the word code or act in it. You were never intended to understand code. In order for something to be law, it must clearly indicate what it requires of the individual. And any kind of item that's been given the form and name of law that conflicts with a right is void on its face.
So, in your book, you talk about the hidden 13th Amendment. Is that...
yes, I do.
Does that mean that every one of these lawyers are committing fraud and treason?
Let's talk about that for a second. Even without the 13th Amendment, the original one, let's say it just never existed, where they crafted this title as a nobility amendment preventing lawyers from accepting offices of public trust. Let's say that never happened. Forgetting that there's historical precedent for it with this Article 6 of Articles of Confederacy, which did the same thing, let's just forget about it. A lawyer still cannot accept an office of public trust because in order to do so, you have to swear an oath of allegiance, an oath of office. You cannot swear an oath of office to the Constitution if you already have sworn an oath of allegiance to England in exchange for title of nobility. Your title of nobility is evidence of your inability to serve public office in America. It is still perjury upon swearing oath of office. So these lawyers that are holding these offices should all be arrested. They know this. This is how they've been able to pervert and corrupt the law in America to a point where people have no freedom anymore. Of course, it's the Crown of England that's coming after our freedom. That's who our original enemy was. People, we lost the War of 1812. We did not win that war. That is where your courts were taken over, where all of your land patents were seized. Fraudulently and criminally, so it doesn't matter, it's not lawful, no one has to abide it.
So, the other question I got for you, man, is was about the 3-step process of filing your filing your rights with the sheriff's office. Or
yes. Every time you're going to enter discussion with an entity to attempt to avoid conflict, this is always something that's wise to do. No matter what it is, people can foresee conflicts arising. We are rational, we are thinking, adult, mature human beings. We can foresee conflicts arising. As a rule of thumb, conflict is always avoidable. It is always undesirable. You have a duty to attempt to avoid conflict before taking a matter into a court. And if you do not do that, you can be thrown in jail. We're going to go over this in detail because it's very, very important. My 3-notice process derives right out of Matthew 5:25 regarding settling matters with your adversary quickly. Now, I'm not Christian. I don't thump the Bible, but I've learned a lot from it, and I respect that faith. But that being said, this notice process that I've derived out of that is absolutely brilliant because it offers discussion to your adversary, a process that's a common law process. Common law discussion takes place through notices, through affidavits, and what are otherwise known as bills of exchange or negotiable instruments. These documents are the specific realm for your notary public. And it's always a 3-notice series when you're initiating discussion with an entity or when they're initiating discussion with you. For example, you get pulled over, you got a traffic ticket. no matter what you got a ticket for. It doesn't matter. It's just a notice. It's just an officer initiating discussion in common law. When you go to court, you're not there in trouble for what you did to get a ticket, for what you got invited to court for doing. You're in trouble for what you did not do in that 30-day period before court, which is your opportunity to attempt to offer discussion to avoid conflict. It tells you right on the citation, do not ignore it, that you must answer it within a given time frame, usually 15 days. If you do not do this, when you go to court, if you have sent no notices in response to your ticket, you've already lost by default. So the very first thing you do when you get a ticket is you send a notice of conditional acceptance is what it's called. You respond, you answer, you enter discussion with this entity, you flip their script upon them. Anything they can do to you, this is a common law jurisdiction, the whole country is. Anything they can do to you, you can do to them right back. You can impose a time frame for them to respond as well, and if they don't respond, you win by default. That is exactly what my notice process does. It's a 3-process series. It runs through the notary public. Second notice is notice of dishonor. It advises them that they have not answered your notice, that they have dishonored it. The third notice gives them another third final opportunity to answer your notice. And if they don't, at that time, that third notice being notice of protest for non-acceptance, which comes right from the notary, after 10 days, once that's ignored, the notary public can grant a judgment. Understand, notary publics are officers of the court, again, justices ranked above the Supreme Court. They can enter judgments with respect to this discussion process when you've been ignored. You can get these judgments in your favor before you even set foot in a court regarding a traffic ticket. You walk in, you've already got a judgment in your hand, you just hand it to the judge, and you're done. Case dismissed.
And so your first notice, they can't respond to it in any way because they were violating. They
never do, they never will. They are only set up to initiate discussion. For some reason, they have no idea how to use their own process. They cannot and never do answer you. Because what you're asking them for in your conditional acceptance, the conditions you impose, is you want to see a contract and you want an original bill. They can't give you a bill because if they do, they can't take you to court. They're trying to create conflict. They won't show you a contract because they'll never admit that it's the registration contract that makes you liable to these terms and conditions of the Motor Vehicle Code. So they're never going to produce a contract. They're never going to answer these notices. They're always going to end up in default, and you're always going to get your case kicked out and dismissed. It's how it works. It's so simple to do. I did it myself using my own process. The proof is on my website where you can see the dismissal notice that I have.
Why don't you go ahead and plug your website and your book? Because, man, it changed my life for real.
I have 2 websites that I operate. They're www.suijurislaw.net and suijurislaw.co. The book is Sui Juris, the Lawful Age, Your Sovereign Claim to Unalienable Individual Rights. And the Facebook group that I run is Sui Juris Law, the Self-Governing. Anyone who's a friend of a member or my friend on Facebook can get into the group.
Yeah, it's just some good discussions going on there.
And I keep in contact with my readers in the group. I talk to everyone in the group. I throw up posts that are very informative often in the group.
That's correct. I've had several questions myself. One was how do I get out of paying taxes at work, and I just asked one simple question.
Easy.
And I guarantee. Yeah, well, I know, but I had about 10 people in the group help me with that information, sir.
Did they refer you to the notices that I have in the group files section that are specifically related to terminating the W-4 agreement?
Yep, sure did.
They did? Excellent. That's exactly what they should have done. I love my group. The members of my group are so good. They help one another. It's exactly what it's supposed to be all about.
I mean, it's one of the few groups. It's not a debate group. That's what I like about it. I mean,
no,
people
it's
are
not.
there
There's
to help
no
each
debate.
other. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
The debate is over. We have been screwed. Law has been stolen from us, and we're taking it back. There's no debate.
Amen to that. Yeah, but
and this battle
like
begins at the county sheriff's office.
Yeah, but like
Sheriff,
I was saying
earlier, let us know why that is. I'm sorry, Sean.
What's that?
Oh, you're fine.
You're
fine.
Real quick, why is it the sheriff? I mean, why don't you explain that for people?
The county sheriff is the highest office of common law in the county. The sheriff is equal to president within the county. The sheriff is the CEO of every court within the county. And the sheriff has a duty to the care and custody of everyone who's pending any form of court action. That duty in itself must, by very nature of that duty, require them to ensure that there's some valid cause of action against someone for the case to even see the inside of a courtroom to begin with.
Awesome. So when you file your notice with the sheriff, does it takes effect in counties outside of that county? Because
it does by agent principal rule. Here's what it does. You serve notice to the sheriff. Every single police officer in the county is a subordinate to the sheriff. They are his agents. By agent principal rule, you serve notice upon the principal, you serve notice upon the agents, and you also serve notice upon the principal by serving notice upon the agents. So it goes up the chain of command just as well as it goes down. It doesn't just affect your county sheriff. It goes up to the state. It goes up to the federal government as well. Your notices are effective nationwide. The truth does not change just because there is some imaginary line on a map.
Awesome. You have something to add, Sean?
No, I was just going to say, to finish my story about my nephew, I ended up going to court with him to pay his tickets because he wanted to practice Sui Juris, but he didn't want to study it. He wanted me to do all the legwork for him, and I was just too busy to do it.
It's called Sui Juris for a reason. It means of your own law, not someone else is going to do it for you.
Right. Yeah, so I told him
no one else is more qualified to protect your interests than you.
Right. But
and you
anyway,
were born your own lawyer. You might as well exercise that birthright.
Yeah, I gave him every one of your lectures. I had the book right there on the computer, told him to read it, listen to the lectures, listen to some of the shows that we had done in the past. I gave him all the archive shows. He wouldn't do none of it. So, I wouldn't help him.
I hate to say it, those who can at least do that much should be dealing with these privileges because rights are too big of a responsibility for them.
Yeah, and that's most of the sheeple. But anyway, so I go into the courtroom. The courtroom, that's what I'm going to call it here, with the quotation marks in there.
Quotes, exactly.
Yeah. We walk into this place, and I see the Maritime Admiralty flags flying over there, so I know it's a de facto court.
Let me guess, it was an administrative law judge, correct?
Yep, sure was.
Yes. See, it's an administrative proceeding. You're not there for a criminal matter. You're not there for a civil matter. You're there because of paperwork. You failed to answer a notice. You're in dishonor.
Right.
Wake up.
Right. And so I sat in that courtroom for 1 hour, Rob, and I watched that courtroom rip those people. And you're not talking about people in business suits. You're not talking about people that look like they had money. You're talking about broke, poor people. And I watched that courtroom rip them people off in an hour for over $3,000. I was just blushing.
When I had my own tickets, I went in for my own tickets to fight them. And before my case, I got to hear 15 cases before mine. Some people had some very good arguments and were genuinely not guilty of what they were charged of doing. Some people had piss-poor arguments or were just trying to get out of it. And it was easy to tell who was who, but in the end, every single one of them ended up paying. There was this guy who got the charges dismissed, but he still had to pay the surcharges, which were more than the original fine. Do you know why he had to pay the surcharges? Because he was already in default because he did not properly answer the notice the way he was supposed to.
Right. Yeah,
had he done that, he wouldn't have had to pay anything.
Yeah, that's the one significant thing that always stood out to me. What you would say on these shows, they give you 30 days for a reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to court at least 20 times in front of a judge, and when I read the chapter on court conflict, honor, and dishonor, it just clicked so much because
it
they
all
asked
made
you, do you
sense.
understand? Yeah, it did. It always like, well, that's why I always got screwed, even when I didn't do it on that one time. But
yep, you claim to understand.
Yeah, do you stand under the jurisdiction of the Queen, basically? Now,
yes,
a quick question.
In that moment, you are giving the court its jurisdiction. It no longer has to prove that there's a party of interest, that there's an injured party, because you just consented to jurisdiction when you claim to stand under that charge. No one should ever claim to stand under any charge where there is no injured party.
Wow. I mean, yeah, just like...
The way you do it is you say, no, I do not stand under the cause and nature of these charges and proceedings. There is no standing. There is no real party of interest. There is no jurisdiction. The court has not satisfied the requirements of corpus delicti. They've not proven that there is a complaining party who is sworn under oath damage or injury to person or property or violation of a lawful right. That is how you prove the cause. The nature is the burden of proof, preponderance of evidence, or beyond reasonable doubt. Is it a civil charge? Is it a contract issue? Or is it a crime? Is one of the rights violated? That's the difference. That's the nature. So they can't explain to you the cause and nature. What these courts want to do is they just want to read the charge when you go in for arraignment, as if that's supposed to tell you anything. What they're supposed to do is your right is to be informed as to the cause and nature of the charges and proceedings against you. Not to have some idiot in a uniform stand up and read the charge. Okay, what did that do to hurt anybody? What contract did it violate? It doesn't explain anything, you see what I'm saying? They're not even properly arraigning people. They're violating due process of law at every step. And if you call them out on it, you can get your cases dismissed for it. They draw cases out of court all the time when cops violate the Fourth Amendment on illegal search. Of course they're going to do the same thing on the violation of due process. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter what right they're violating. They have to protect your rights as they're upholding and enforcing law. They can't just step on your freedom to do it.
Right, and there were some questions you said that you could ask in court that would kind of put them in a corner as far as...
There are a lot of questions you can ask them in court that put them in a corner. One is asking them if you're presumed to be innocent. And then you ask them if you're presumed to be innocent of every element. The attorneys in the courtroom will laugh at that question. They think it means the same as are you presumed to be innocent. The judge won't laugh. The judge will understand exactly what you're asking because these judges are slightly more well-informed than the attorneys are, usually. When you ask if you're presumed to be innocent of every element, that judge knows you understand what composes a valid cause of action in corpus delicti, that there are elements to it. Those first two elements, damage or injury and violation of a right. The third element is redressability of the court. That's the final element of corpus delicti, of a valid cause. That doesn't exist unless the first two do. So when you ask if you're presumed to be innocent of every element of the charges and the judge says yes, You then ask that judge if they're presuming that there's no jurisdiction. Then the court must prove jurisdiction exists. As soon as you challenge jurisdiction, they have to prove it exists. And if they can't, they don't establish jurisdiction, they can't even hear the case, let alone say anything about it. They can't force you to enter a plea until they've proven jurisdiction. If they try, you can walk out. You're not under arrest when you're in a court. People have to end this. You satisfy appearance under special appearance just by showing up and asking if there's a complaining party. If the court doesn't produce one, you've satisfied all of your requirements under a summons. You've appeared. You can then leave. You're free to go if they can't produce a complaining party. There's no cause. There's no standing. There's no case. There's no reason to be there.
So if you haven't violated anyone's rights, basically there's no jurisdiction. There's no complaint.
None, period. And anyone who attempts to arrest you, who hasn't witnessed you commit a crime, you go ahead and threaten them outright. You will file charges of assault against them, kidnapping, because you can. They can't just arrest you for nothing because the judge doesn't like you. I mean, these courts are our courts. People have to understand that they are not subject to the whims of a judge. The judge has no authority over you whatsoever but the authority you give them. So if you never consented to jurisdiction, and they never established jurisdiction, they have no authority, period. They can't order you to do anything. I take that back. They can order you. Just like you can go to McDonald's and place an order, they can give you orders, and you're free to accept them. But you can then bill them for those orders, too. If that judge orders you to take off your hat, you take off your hat, you hand him a bill for $1,000.
Do you know anyone who's ever collected on their fee schedule?
I've never had to invoke my fee schedule, so I can't say I have. But I know how I would collect using the same exact process with the notary public that I used to put my claim of right on file with my sheriff. It's the same process I've already succeeded with, so I know it would work again if I had to collect on my fee schedule. They're so polite to me because I have a fee schedule, I can't invoke it.
You never operate under duress, as you say in the book. And I suggest everyone read the book. It's a great book.
I've not yet had an opportunity to actually operate under protest and duress. They've always just been so polite. And I gotta say, most of these officers, they don't want to be enforcing this statutory shit any more than we want to be living under it. They want it to go away as much as we do. They want to be fighting real crime.
We have one of the
Go get the human traffickers and the rapists. Go get the pedophiles and the murderers.
Right. Instead of just collecting profit for the corporation, you know.
Here's why they do it. Yeah. Here's why they do it. It's an inferiority complex. Real crime is hard to prosecute and hard to prove. When they get someone dead to rights, they got to nail them to the wall for some bullshit statutory infraction because they have little dicks and they have this complex of inferiority because they can't prosecute real crime.
Okay, well, what is, when you say appearing in court as a belligerent claimant and personam to assert and defend your lawful rights?
And you object to everything they say about you. You deny everything that they're claiming. You do not have to be rude, impolite, and ignorant to be belligerent. All you have to do is be contradictory, really. You ask questions. You be respectful, you be polite, you exercise your rights, you deny everything that they say, and you object to everything. If they call you a citizen, object to that. I'm not a citizen, I'm a sovereign inhabitant. I exist here by right of birth. This is true. You can say that in the court because it's true. That is what a belligerent claimant is. And anyone who cannot assert their rights, which, again, is what a belligerent claimant is someone who asserts their rights and refuses to enter into these contracts, these transactions of security interests with these courts. Someone who exercises rights. If you do not do that, you lose them. You forfeit them. They cannot be protected by attorney or solicitor. You have to do it in person. You can only do it through juris. And real quick, there's a big difference between these statuses, pro se and sui juris. The statuses of pro se and pro per are no different than having an attorney. They are both statuses of representation. You're claiming to represent yourself. You clearly are yourself. So you're claiming to represent yourself. You're obviously either of unsound mind or an infant, which is what a client is. A client is a ward of the court. A ward of the court is an infant or person of unsound mind. That is what they declare you if you declare to be pro se or pro per. Sui juris is the only status in court that indicates legal competence of your full age status to administrate your own affairs at law.
Okay,
have you seen the video? Huge.
Have you seen the video of the mountain man? I think his name's Ernie, and I can't pronounce his last name. But he goes
I heard
in
about
and
the
claims.
Story, but I didn't watch the video. I have no idea what he did or did not do. But if he's losing, he's doing something wrong.
No, he didn't lose. The judge left the courtroom, and then he used that. You know, that was his victory, and he left. Walked right past the
cops. If the judge leaves the courtroom and I'm in there as the only sovereign who has not abandoned the court, I would declare the case dismissed and I would leave myself. It would be on the record because that recorder has to type everything that's said in that court. And the last thing to be said on the record would be case dismissed. That is what it is.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Constitution and what it really is there to do in the Bill of Rights.
The Constitution is a 4-page contract nobody ever signed. Look really carefully at the signatures on the Constitution. You will see no one ever signed it. Everyone signed it in witness. Witnesses are neither signatories to nor bound by the contracts that they witness. So no one ever signed the Constitution. It's a 4-page contract that proposes the powers of government. It is what gives government its power. It is the only entity bound by the Constitution. You and I are not bound by the Constitution. We are bound by law, common law, our rights. Everyone knows the law because everyone knows what their rights are, or you're supposed to know what your rights are. And we all share these rights equally, so you know not to violate another one's rights. Because you know what yours are. It's really simple. Law is supposed to be that simple. Law is not supposed to be something so complicated you need an 8-year degree to understand it.
Right, and you're expected. They tell you in high school. I know they told me you're expected to know every law because ignorance of the law is no excuse. And really, they're but they don't tell you what the real law is.
People should be taught what their rights are and how to defend them. People should be taught how to fill out these certain forms and how to file actions in court, how to press criminal charges, how to file a civil suit. People should know how to do this stuff inherently when they leave school, and they don't.
Absolutely.
That just absolutely blows my mind that people can graduate high school in this country and not know how to file a lawsuit when you're expected to know and uphold your rights, know every law. Yet it's not a major class taught in every grade. You're not required to speak a second language, yet you can learn about that in school. Everyone's required to know and obey the law. How the hell is that not being taught?
Absolutely, man. That's the big kicker. Like,
it's because they don't want you to know the law. What they want you to know is the conventional wisdom, what people think they know about law that they've heard from someone else who also didn't study it.
Well, it's obvious that a public school system ain't nothing but a training course in what they want you to believe.
The public school system today is nothing more than an indoctrination camp. It has nothing to do with education. They don't teach people how to think. They teach people what to think.
Right. And how to memorize it. Yep.
Exactly. And what they're teaching people is bullshit anyway. Why do you think people are having such a hard time with depression in school these days? It's because what they're teaching is utter crap. People should be learning the right way. It's supposed to be a joyous experience when you come across real, truthful information. Tell me learning the Sui Juris methodology is not a joyous, liberating experience.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would say it's not.
Well, it's like the Rage Against the Machine song says, they'll infect your children, they'll betray you in their name. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. They give your children this bullshit propaganda indoctrination, like Rob said, and then they'll turn on you. I mean, they'll fight you over it. Trust me, take it from somebody who knows with experience.
It's already happened for 200 years worth of generations. I mean, this has been going on since the country began. They've been trying to destroy the rights of the Americans since the American came into existence. People have to understand there is an enemy. This is an occupied territory. This country has been conquered. The United States and America are two different entities. The United States has conquered America. That's why there's gold fringe around those flags in the courtroom, like the gentleman was mentioning earlier. It represents the complete surrounding of this country under British Maritime Admiralty law.
Right.
Martial law. This country has been under martial law since 1933. It's just not overt with police on the street. Well, it is. The police state is all around us, and you can see it. Big Brother cameras everywhere.
Right. Now, you've got some new listeners. I mean, you've got some people that's really new to this that I brought on tonight. And so if you don't mind, because they were inquiring to me earlier, explain Maritime Admiralty law a bit.
Oh, sure. There are two things in existence. There is land and there is water. There are two types of law. There's the law of land, the land that the people of a given country or continent abide. And then there's the law of water, the law of the high seas. The law of water is all British Maritime Admiralty. It goes back to Vatican canon law. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to enforce this law of water upon land. They're trying to, actually what they're doing quite cleverly is they're getting everybody to claim that they are boats doing international commerce with this capitalized name, this Social Security number. They've got you claiming that you have come into a dock store at birth through your mother's water. And that's how they get you under Maritime Admiralty law. You're salvage goods when you come into the dock store.
Yeah.
When your parents sign you over to the state, they're signing you over. That's your birth certificate. Your certificate is manifest.
Yep.
That is what they've got to do.
That's a great explanation. I've tried to explain it to people. Basically, the way I try to explain it to people is look at it like take a building that's flying this flag with the gold fringes around it. That represents the ship.
Once you revoke the contracts
the
that give rise to all of that Maritime Admiralty bullshit, once you revoke by sending notice to the sheriff of this fraud perpetrated against you, you revoke all those Maritime Admiralty registration contracts, and they can no longer impose this Maritime Admiralty law over you. All that you are bound by is the law of land, the common law, the king's law. And in this country, we're the fucking kings. You write your own law.
Amen.
That's what your notices, your affidavits, and your writs are for. You are self-governing.
It's pretty simple when you think about it.
It is, and
it is at its heart. The foundation is very simple. The child can understand all this. honestly, it's easier for me to teach a room full of 50 kids than it is for me to teach a room full of 10 adults. Because adults have to be deprogrammed first. The children accept it. They understand it. They don't have to be deprogrammed.
So when you give a police officer your name, first of all, when do you have to give a peace officer your name?
All right. That's a very, very good question. First and foremost, you are not under any obligation whatsoever to ever identify yourself to anyone unless and until you're being accused of a crime. Even in that situation, lawfully identifying yourself is as simple as giving your first name. You are not required to even possess a legal name or government-issued identification. So you do not have an obligation to produce that to anyone whatsoever.
So when the cop walks up and asks you for your ID because you're driving a registered car,
are you prepared to accuse me of a crime? That's your question. You answer every question with the question.
So what did you say now? I missed that.
When they ask you for a license, registration, insurance, whatever, you ask them if they're accusing you of a crime. If they say yes, what's the crime? They'll say whatever. Is that a statutory infraction or is that a crime? Because crimes and infractions are two different things. Are the violations of terms and conditions of a contract. That motor vehicle code. Crimes are violations of law. Someone else's rights or property. There's a big difference. He who distinguishes well will learn well and do well in this.
Okay. Awesome, man. I think we're going to take a break in a few minutes, and then we'll get to what this means for a peaceful revolution. And
are we coming up on an hour already?
Yep.
Yeah, we're on an hour already. Yes, sir.
2-hour show seems like a daunting task at first, but once you start talking about this stuff, it seems like you never have enough time to cover it all. It is such a huge topic, and there's so much to it. But again, at its core, it's very, very simple. It just touches everything. It touches everything from medicine to pharmacology. It touches everything from education to spirituality. It touches everything in your life. Law governs all. Everyone should know and obey the law. But
that's
at the same time, we have to clarify what law is.
And that's kind of what we do on NWO Truth Radio. It's we're always looking for solutions. I mean, we cover the conspiracies. And I'm not going to waste my time calling them theories. I'm so sick of theories.
Exactly.
Most of this stuff that we cover on this network is fact. I mean, you can look it up for yourself. I mean, if it's speculation,
this stuff that I'm talking about right now is not even conspiracy. I mean, this is right out in the open. They do this blatantly. They're not even denying it.
That's right.
Absolutely, man. And that's the thing I love about it is it's
and enter a plea on your behalf. They don't deny anything. And once they enter a plea on your behalf, you got them. Once they act outside their bonded authority, you can collect the entire value of that judge's bond. Let them enter a plea for me. Watch what happens.
And how awesome, great would it be, Rob, if we could have 330 million Americans agree to this? You know, if we could get everybody on board with this, man, it would be so.
It'd be wonderful, but I'll say it like this: in 1776, it took 2% of a population of ragtag farmers with pitchforks to rise up and defeat the greatest powerful army on the face of the planet. We already have more than 2% of the people on board with this, even though it doesn't necessarily seem like it. We have more than 2% right now, and it's all we're going to need.
Yep.
That's right.
What are we waiting on?
The 100-monkey syndrome is about to kick in. People are going to start using this stuff regularly, and police are just going to stop pulling people over for this bullshit because they're never going to know if they're pulling over someone who might be able to, take their pool table away from them.
I like how you said that, man. That's awesome.
We're at the
What
top
I'm
of the
saying
hour,
is
so
that these judgments. Oh, okay. Go ahead. You guys do your break if you want. We'll get into judgments later.
yeah.
One more thing before we go. One more thing before we go. The one of the biggest clues that this is the right path to be on is that Alex Jones isn't talking about it. No one's talking about it. There you go. I mean, the biggest clue that this is the way to go. So,
real quick,
yeah, with that,
I approached Alex Jones to sell my book on his site. They wanted 60% or wouldn't even talk to me.
Imagine that. Imagine that.
I'm the author,
you're
and
not
they
in
want
the conspiracy
60%.
business. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I was trying to be
well,
fair. I was offering 30.
Yeah. Well,
the
you're
book's
always
a great
money
deal
grubbing,
for the
greedy
work
sons
you
of
had to put
bitches
into
is
it.
what Alex Jones is.
Well, I can tell you personally, Rob, we advocate Sui Juris on this network all the time. Just about every host on this network is a member of your group, and we highly respect you. Love having you on the shows. You're welcome anytime you want to come, bro.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Well, we're going to take a short little 5-minute break here and listen to a song. It's got a little bit of vulgarity in it, so if you've got tender ears, you can go to the bathroom or whatever. But if you want to stick around and listen to the actual song, just tune the curse words out and listen to the message because, it's very important. We'll be right back.
Glory! There is no glory to be had now. Only retreat or surrender or death. We are taking the easy choice for us. Never retreat. Never surrender.
The media's all don't like who the fuck I be, cause I vow to liquidate the FCC and utilize advanced technology to make a murderous army follow me. Arch enemy of the police state, they cannot stand TRUTH. Intellectual cowards run away from debates. They built an industry on unadulterated hate. Illuminati can't buy me or play me. I am not your Kanye West or Jay-Z. The Rockefellers get vigorous kicks from killing crackers, wetbacks, wops, niggas, and spics. Only an invalid don't understand why I'm insulted. Naming their record labels after motherfucking vultures. Cultures are created by monsters with the intent to incarcerate you, get you divided and conquered. I want you all to remember your representatives are pathological liars, nothing short of insane. Complicit in the murder of millions, and I'm sorry that's still their agenda. They're talking to you so tender, but with utter content, cause they need your consent to get you on the train. As long as you're oblivious to this, you agree to surrender.
Between 20-35% interest on that fucking card. You know, my time growing up in Brooklyn, you'd have been doing 10 years in fucking Leavenworth for fucking usury. 10 years of fucking usury. That's fucking shylocking. These fucking credit card companies, they shylock you today. How the fuck they get away with it?
Usury has been condemned by the wise as a treasonous crime despised since the beginning of time. Money changes are bloody, dangerous, and forbidden by God. Jesus Christ flipped over their tables and hit them with rods. Mere talk leads to poverty, forced labor, and sodomy. Predicated on grand theft, larceny, and robbery. Police enforce corporate policy, unsavory. A people unarmed is the definition of slavery. Peace officers used to be neighborly, but their bravery has been replaced with savagery and depravity. Cause they're owned by the corporate plutocracy. Their only job description is protecting private property. That don't mean you're home, cause you're home you don't own. They issued you a jacket and convinced you that you would sink without it. You belong to the state. Think about it. I want you all to remember your representatives are pathological liars, nothing short of insane. Complicit in the murder of millions, and I'm sorry that's still their agenda. They're talking to you so tender, but with utter content, cause they need your consent to get you on the train. That's the intent. As long as you're oblivious to this, you agree to surrender.
This ain't the land of the fucking free. This is the land of the fucking suckers and fucking junks. I mean, come on, give me a break.
Yes, and welcome back to NWO Truth Radio. I'll bring everybody in back here in a minute. This is Sean Auten for all of you who are paying attention here. But this is important to understand. We cover politics on the show a lot. We cover science. We cover, the financial means of the conspiracy. We cover religion. We cover every aspect of it. But this is the one important thing that you can understand. You have a sword, and it's through common law. It's through your unalienable rights given to you of no man. You're born with them. And if you own them, they're there for you. And I just want everybody to understand that. It's a very important thing to understand. I didn't understand it until I bought this book. I encourage you, if you're listening to this show tonight, to buy this book. It's a very empowering book. You could literally carry this around like a firearm. This is a weapon, that you can use to fight this system that each and every one of us that listens to this network or is a part of this network want to fight this system. And that's why James was so inspired to have Rob on tonight, because he came across this for the first time. I could see the excitement in his text on Facebook. I can hear the excitement in his voice. And it's not the first person I've seen this happen to with this information. It's very empowering. It's very important. I want everybody to understand. Just pay close attention tonight in the second hour. If you have a question, raise your hand just by calling one, pressing 1. If you're listening on your phone, and it'll let me know in the studio that you have a question for the callers, or you can, if you're listening via internet, you can just call in to 805-830-8329, and like I said, press 1 to let us know you have a question. I'm going to bring everybody back in here.
All right. Now, thank you, Sean, for that. That was a great reintroduction after the song.
Yes, sir.
And you're right. This book is very powerful, and it's the message of the physical incentives you get and the spiritual empowerment when you realize that you're bowing to a God of government. And if you're a Christian, that's a sin. Put no God before the Creator. And the Creator is who endowed us with all these rights. And that's why we have them here in America. And because we're under common law. And we've been bamboozled. And anyone watching the news, whether you look at conspiracies or not, something's wrong. That there's something not going right. And
right.
If you ignore it and brush it off, it's only going to get worse. Like the healthcare law, I bet 95% of the people doesn't know that there's mandatory RFID chipping in the healthcare bill.
Let's cover that real quick. That is the Healthcare Act, not the Healthcare Law. It is not
right.
law. It is an act. Just like everything else, it's voluntary, and you participate in it via W-4 agreement the same way you do Social Security.
So, okay, a few questions, man. The difference between an act and a statute and an actual law, just real quick, so
laws
people grasp
are
that.
rights. Very clearly, laws are the individual rights of the people. Law enforcement is the protection of the rights of the people. Acts are the statutory terms and conditions of these contracts that people are entering into by registration. Citizens are citizens by virtue of a registration contract. Even citizens are not bound to that act, though. That act was based on a bill. That bill was H.R. 3590. I have the bill itself. I had it since it came out. Section 1555 of it made it voluntary for everybody, titled Freedom Not to Participate in Federal Health Insurance Programs. It's really quite simple, but nobody reads this shit.
Right. The news tells them it's mandatory, so we all assume, not we all,
right.
but as a nation, we assume
the only reason there was hype surrounding specific exemptions in D.C. was to create the false conception of a mandate that does not exist.
I remember when it was being passed, Sean Hannity rambling like it's mandatory, da da da. You know, I never read it. I wasn't into this quite like I am today. That's right, and that's what's important to realize. And none of this is mandatory. None of this stuff you do on your day-to-day basis, you pay taxes on your house you allegedly own. And the book tells you how to. The book tells you.
The property taxes you pay aren't even property taxes. You're paying a rental fee for having your home on someone else's land because you don't own the mineral rights.
Yeah, Rob, real quick, I actually had a friend of mine who's listening to the show tonight. He likes to fly under the radar, so he didn't want me to bring him on or state his name or anything.
That's
but he
fine.
had a question for you. He was wanting to know about I forgot what it's called. It's in the book.
Allodial title?
Allodial title, yeah, because he's wanting to start trying to build a cob house. And he's wanting to bypass all the permits and everything. And I told him he could do that through Sui Juris.
Build it.
Yeah. So if you would, explain that.
Allodial title is very simply the complete and absolute ownership of property. This is the natural state of property ownership in this country. When you go to the store and you buy a banana, you own it in allodium. You own it in complete. Allodial, the very word, comes from the word alloy. It means you own the minerals that compose the item, not just the item. So you're free to dispose of it as you see fit. You are the absolute owner. It answers to your sole discretion. Everyone has a fundamental right to own property in this fashion. The only difference between your car, your home, and that banana are people have registered their cars and homes and given them over to the state. When you do not do this, you retain the right of allodial ownership of your property. You don't have to ask anyone for a permit to do anything with that property. You own it. It's yours. You can build on it as you see fit. You can have whatever you want on that property, animals. Hell, you can have a junkyard. I don't care what you want. It's your property to do it as you see fit. And that is as simple as a declaration, an affidavit. The very first exercise of power in this country came by act of declaration. Every individual in this country is equal. We are all sovereign. We are all kings and queens. Every one of us has every single right within us that our former king had, which included, of course, this right to own property in allodium this way. It is a birthright. It cannot be denied to you. Let's say the state doesn't want to cancel the registration of your home. They can't do that. All you got to do is file a little declaration of allodial ownership. You declare under penalty of perjury that you do in fact own that property completely. And guess what? Then you do. That affidavit declaring allodial ownership becomes your title.
Does having
and at that
a
point,
loan
you can
on
do
your
whatever
house
you
mean
want with
anything?
your property. What's that?
Does having a loan affect that? Does having a loan on your house, does that change that at all? I mean, does that...
No.
Yeah, that was my next question.
Here's what's up with the loan, okay? Real quick, I've got to cover this because banking is such a criminal financial enterprise. It's not funny. When you take out a loan, you're not taking out a loan on the home. Like when you get a mortgage to get a home, you fund the loan. That promissory note you signed has actual cash value. You're swapping your money for their money. They do not have a vested interest in the property you bought with the money that you swapped. Their interest is in the promissory note itself and the loan because it has cash value. If it did not have actual cash value, it would be fraud for them to do what they do with it, which is they deposit it into an interest-bearing account. And the things they do with it from there are just even more criminal. They package it with others. They create 9 times the amount of the loan, each loan, out of thin air, and deposit that in the account as well. Package these together and call them securities and draw interest off them. For the entire 30-year period, they have you paying out your ass thinking you owe this money back. All you're doing is buying back your promissory note when you make a mortgage payment. If you had collateralized your property with a rock of gold of equivalent value, for example, you give that to the bank. If you don't pay the loan back, they get to keep your gold. They don't get to keep your gold and then come get the home.
Right. So basically, anybody who's been foreclosed upon.
This fraud is how these banks have acquired these properties. It's how they've managed to separate the land patent, the allodial ownership right, from the real estate, the stuff above the ground that they sell or rent. It's just a rental property if it's registered. You're a tenant, not an owner.
Right, because slaves can't own property, just rent it.
Exactly. Just like citizens have agreed to be slaves. Citizens have, by virtue of registration, contract, and citizenship, waived every fundamental right. Under the 14th Amendment, they get privileges, which slaves used to get. Slavery never was abolished. It was simply expanded to encompass everyone but the ruling class.
Exactly.
What we have is we have a bifurcated society with one set of rules for the ruling elite and one set of rules for the schmucks. Well, guess what? We're all kings. Everyone's equal. We all make our own law.
That was the founding principle of America to begin with. Am I not right, Rob?
It's what made people flock here from all over the world.
Right. Yeah, you bring that up. I worked with a guy from Laos, and which is, of course, a communist country. And,
I know where Laos is. I know all about it.
Yeah. He fled from that nation during the Vietnam War and came to America. And he said, I thought I was coming to America to be free. He said, but what I see is freedom in a cage. The more money you have, the more freedom you have. If you don't have any money, you don't have any freedom. And if I knew then what I know now about Sui Juris, I could have instructed him how to get that freedom back.
Yes, you could have.
Yep.
I wish I could get a hold of people when they're 16 before they even apply for the license. We've got our teenagers worshiping this license, believing that it is itself freedom, not even bothering to look and see if they need a license to begin with.
Right. Yep. I'm running into that right now. I've got two teenagers.
The only license they need to learn how to operate a motor vehicle, an automobile, is from their parent. That's the only person who can give them permission.
Right.
There simply, for an adult, is no one else to seek permission from for these things. The government is not above you. Government is below you. We created government. And, more so, we created it to secure our rights, not to violate them in the name of securing them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and even Christians, I hear them all the time. They say, God put in all the civil governments in place for a reason.
God had nothing to do with civil government.
What we have is a rogue government anyway,
Yeah,
it's not
government is not civil.
Yeah, no, there's
Let's
nothing
put it this
civil
way,
about
very simply. Government means to rule the mind. In this country, we are self-governing because we rule our own minds.
Right, which is the epitome of freedom. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as long as you don't harm anyone or violate anyone's rights, no one can intervene in your activities.
If God had anything to do with it, was he put it in to see if you cared enough to revolt against it, because it's just absurd the shit you have to go through just to live here, and it's getting worse every day.
Dude, yeah. The father
That's exactly why our Declaration of Independence talks about overthrowing the government. it tells us we can do it. We don't need to do it. We just need to arrest the criminal bastards who have corrupted it. But we can abolish these forms to which we are accustomed at any time.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the point I'm at right now. You know, what are we waiting on? You know, we've got the power to do it. What are we waiting on? You know,
critical mass is all we're waiting on, because we want it to be peaceful and without a shot. We don't want a bloody, violent war. We want a peaceful revolution by evolution.
Right. I'm tired of war. I mean, I'm tired of seeing it. You know, this stuff that's going on in the Middle East. I advocate about this all the time, you know, on this network. I'm so sick of watching, of looking at pictures of children laying in mass graves, you know, just slaughtered at the will of this corporate greed, and nobody bats an eye at it. But let a actor
paid for by your tax dollars, done in your name.
Exactly. But let an actor die, and everybody loses their mind and acts like they know the guy because they saw him in a movie. Come on, man. Oh, it's just sickening, dude. It really is.
The deification of celebrity in this country is itself appalling. What we should be doing is boosting the status of our enlightened thinkers, the most educated among us, not these best liars, which is who we have.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And if you turn against the liars, you're the enemy. You're an enemy of the state.
Exactly.
Makes me sick.
The truth itself has long been an enemy of the state, because the state exists by the function of a lie.
Of a lie, exactly right.
A state itself is a contract. A state is an agreement amongst people that they are citizens and that there is a state.
Right.
It's a lie. It's a complete fiction.
And your book lays it out so well. You know, I mean, we all have that tickling feeling. Even the sheeple out here, they have that tickling feeling in the back of their neck, like something's wrong, but they just can't put their finger on it.
Because they know if someone pulled a gun on them, they would have to call police who are 15 minutes away to get help. That's what they expect them to believe they have to do, that they don't have a right to defend themselves. They see the cracks in the illusion of security. The individual right is the only true security. Everything else is illusion.
Yeah. I had a conversation with one of my kids. She brought up, I like having the police around because they make me feel safe. And I told her, I was
exactly.
Honey, I said, honey, they're not here to protect and serve you like the side of their car says. They're here to investigate the crime after the fact. The only people that's here for your security is me and your mother.
Yeah, but the police used to be a force for good. People used to be on a first-name basis with their police officers, but not today. Today it's about statutory code enforcement to create a stream of revenue for the state. It's not about justice or the protection of the people at all.
Exactly. Yeah, Cole actually did a show on this a couple of months ago about the fact that they're hiring these megalomaniac, steroid-induced MMA fighting cops to act as thugs on your street. And that's exactly what you see today. If you really look around, I mean, you don't see the Mayberry RFD cops anymore. You see, the Universal Soldiers.
When I see a cop like that?
What's that?
Payday in the making.
I mean, but you touched on it earlier. You know, all the murders and all the rapes and theft that's going on in this world. And what do you see cops doing on Thanksgiving Day? I traveled back from Tennessee to my home in South Carolina, and in that 3-hour trip, I guarantee you, I seen more than 40 state troopers on the highway. You know what? They weren't there to investigate a murder.
Raising revenue.
That's exactly right. They were there to get revenue for the state.
And check
Perfect
this out.
opportunity.
You've got to love these random checkpoints they do where they have a cop on each side of an entrance ramp to the thruway looking at inspection stickers. If they stop you, get out of the car, take down their names, and file charges, they're committing a crime. They're violating your rights by stopping you.
Yeah, we haven't touched on that. Talk tonight about, if you will, about the emergency lights that's on the top of their car.
Those are specifically for emergencies and felonies. If there is not a felony emergency stop taking place and they use those lights, they have themselves committed a felony. It's no different than pulling a fire alarm in a crowded theater. You can't do it. You can't go in and yell fire either unless there's a fire. If I'm driving down the road and my muffler is hanging off, dragging sparks behind me at my gas tank, yeah, I'd like to fucking know about that. Go ahead and stop me. Use your emergency lights. If I'm 2 miles over the speed limit out of statutory compliance and you try to stop me for that, I'm going to have your badge. I'm out of statutory compliance right now. There's no such thing as a drug law. I love my cannabis.
Where do you draw that line at? Where do you draw that line at for being for endangering people and just,
exactly that. When
statute?
you're being responsible and you're not endangering anyone, you're not putting anyone's life at risk. You're not committing a crime. If you're
sounds
being
like a
reckless,
pretty hard case for them to prove,
careless, I would say about 20 miles an hour over the speed limit would be considered reckless. For most roads, to do more than 20 miles an hour over the speed limit would be dangerous. At that point,
well, that
it would
is
be
actually at
reckless.
what point they. Yeah, that's at what point they charge with reckless operation at 20 miles per hour.
Well, that's
or
wise,
more.
and that's exactly the difference between a crime and a statutory infraction. One is about just a breach of some rule, of a regulation, of a regular scenario. If there's no one on the road, of course you're going to want to do like 15 miles an hour over the limit. There's no one around. There's no one to endanger.
Yeah, but the speed limits are criminal themselves, though, if you really think about it. There's we call them speed traps around here. There's one road.
Cars these days are meant to operate at much higher speeds, much safer than they used to be, and the speed limits have not changed to reflect that. That's why there's speed traps, because these cars are meant, you just breathe on the gas pedal and you're speeding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wanted to go even further into it, what a speed trap is. We've got one road up here where cops will sit in this one designated spot, and the designated spot is like right about 5 miles before you get to that spot. It goes up to 55 miles an hour. Then it drops down to 45 about a mile down the road. And then another mile down the road, it goes back up to 55. And then a couple more miles down the road where it hits that 5 mile mark, it drops all the way down to 35, but it's still a highway. And if you ain't paying
that
attention,
is a criminal speed trap in itself.
Yeah.
There should be one speed limit. I mean, speed limits are supposed to take into account the kind of area you're around. If you've got a setting that's completely rural and the same the whole way, the speed limit shouldn't change. If it changes, someone's trying to pull some shit to raise revenue.
Yeah, and you're exactly right, because you'll see a cop sitting there. I guarantee you, day or night, somewhere there's a cop right there at that 35 mile per hour speed limit. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
but I'd love them to pull me over for that stuff. I really would. Those tickets are so easy to beat. They really are.
And for all the listeners, for all the new listeners, this was a hard sell for me at first. The first couple of times I listened to Rob on this network, I was kind of like, man, what the hell is this guy talking about? So I guess I was still, asleep, regarding legalities and lawful resolutions. But the more I started listening to Rob, the more intrigued I became, because I'm like, this guy's making sense. And when I bought the book and read the book, it was overwhelming, the knowledge that's in that book.
That's exactly what it is. It makes sense. you're not really going to be learning anything in the book. You're going to be remembering things you've always known in proper context.
Right.
And
that's
from a
why,
new perspective.
And that's why I applaud you so much on that book, because it's so well written. It's laid out in such a manner that an eighth grader can understand it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. That's a hard thing to do, by the way.
To make law simple to understand, yes, it is. Because they have spent 200 years complicating it, making it impossible for anyone to understand, calling it code the entire time. You were never expected to understand what they call law. Most of what people consider law in this country does not even apply to me or them. They just believe it does and have been manipulated to act like it does. In reality, they are the only one that has the authority that's enforcing this stuff upon themselves. They're just doing it ignorantly.
We're coming up on the middle of the second hour. I really want to get to some questions and say a few things before we do that. I wanted to talk about the Federal Reserve and if we could fraud charges against them. A simple yes or no, in your opinion.
What was that? You said you wanted to cover the Federal Reserve?
Oh, I don't want to get into a whole lot because of the time restraints, but is it fraudulent? Is my question.
Absolutely. Let's see, the Federal Reserve Bank, it's not federal, it's private. It holds no reserves. It just prints money out of thin air, and it doesn't secure the assets of the American people, so it's not even a bank. It's an international counterfeiting ring. That's what it should be called.
Absolutely, man. I want to talk about that more, but
the Federal Reserve Bank, like the bar, is just another operational arm of the Vatican of the Crown of England.
That brings up something interesting I do want to talk about. The Queen is under control of the Vatican by law, correct?
Yes, the royal family is under the Vatican. The Vatican is at the top of everything.
Just a few months ago, the Pope released some letters removing the protection they had through the Vatican of these crimes they're committing. So, absolutely, I mean, and that's something everyone should look into. I'll post a link in the group, and you can share it around. Another thing, I arranged with Rob to purchase 1,500 copies of his books for a great deal. I'm going to print them and burn CDs and distribute them for free to people who show interest in sovereignty, so we can get this show on the road. So if you have any extra money, I'll post a link in the group as well.
To spread my work, to get it to people who need it, and I have not sold out to a publisher. I self-publish. So everything I do on my own completely. It is in my best interest to get my work out there, to make this deal with him, to make it affordable so that people can get it and spread the word. It's in my interest to do that.
Hey, Rob,
I appreciate it, man.
We got an 816 area code. Apparently, he's one of the members of Sui Juris. He wanted to come on the air and give you a shout out.
Great, bring him on.
All right. 816, you're live.
Yeah, this is Jerry Howe. What's up, Rob?
Hey, how's it going, Jerry?
Pretty good. Hey, I was wondering, I thought after the break you were going to get into the part of what you were talking about, like
judgments?
Judgments and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, real quick, I'll cover that. It's these judgments that these notary publics can grant for you. They are powerful enough, they are sufficient and lawful force to compel a sheriff to escort you to seize property on your behalf up to the value of your judgment at fair market liquid value. So say one of these cops violates your rights, and you use this notice process, and you invoke your fee schedule, and you do it the right way. You can show up at his house with the sheriff and seize property. You can literally walk out of his home with his pool table.
I see. Is this like through the commercial lien process?
No, not at all. This is through common law judgment process. Nothing I do has anything to do with any kind of a commercial lien against anyone. It's very simply when someone violates your rights and forces you to perform anything under protest and duress, and you invoke your fee schedule, they are forcing you to contract. And what you're doing very simply is you're creating the terms and conditions of the contract. You have a gun, you don't have a contract. Yeah, it's a good idea if I clean your floor because you got a gun. But you don't have a contract. It's going to cost you $1,500 a square inch. So you get to impose the terms because you're being forced under protest and duress to perform. So that is the very nature of where your judgment comes from, the violation of your rights, which are your property. And those can only be recompensed through financial compensation. So when a judgment is granted for you by these notary publics, they can't be overturned because they're not about facts or law. They're about you entering discussion properly. The sheriff can then seize property for you. It's all common law.
I see.
That's awesome, man.
It is. I really can't stand those commercial liens because they get people into trouble.
Right. Okay, so
there's a big difference between a commercial lien and a common law judgment.
Have you collected any pool tables yet?
Not yet. Again, I haven't had to go to the fee schedule because everyone's so damn polite to me.
And I think that's the main point. You know, we need to pay attention to it. You got to know how to talk.
Yeah, that's what my work is all about. I didn't want to be in constant conflict with these people for the rest of my life. I wanted it like this, where they leave me alone.
Right. Oh, I agree.
Yeah, that's
totally.
the whole point of it.
I'm not interested in taking their property, but you know,
exactly.
if they're going to go ahead and violate my rights, I want to seek some kind of recourse against them.
Exactly.
And
but I'd like to give them the opportunity to be aware that they really shouldn't violate my rights first.
Right.
Okay, so in my case, I live in Jackson County, Missouri. And when you go on to the Jackson County, Missouri Sheriff's website, and you look in there about his, about his office and stuff, he's got a deal in there where he's sworn to uphold the county charter, but it doesn't say anything about the Constitution or anything like that in there.
What a county sheriff is does not change by virtue of any kind of statute or act, area by area. A county sheriff is in one place what it is everywhere, just like a notary public.
Right.
The county sheriff very simply is the highest authority of law enforcement in the land. They are the chief protector of the rights of the people, and they are the highest office of common law, the oldest office under the system of common law. They are the end-all, be-all when it comes to fundamental rights. So if your rights are violated, that's where to go.
Right. So my question being, because I know the corruption in this county, it's probably the stinkiest corruption in Missouri, aside of the county of St. Louis. But say, for instance, I got this judgment. What happened? What's my recourse if my sheriff refused to go and seize property for me?
You file criminal charges against your sheriff and have his ass arrested, and then you go seize his property.
Who would you file those criminal charges against him with?
You have several options at that point. You can go right to the Supreme Court and have it referred to the Department of Justice. You can contact the U.S. Attorney's Office. You can contact the FBI. There are a lot of different places you can go, but I would start with Supreme Court by filing a civil case against the sheriff and having it referred to the Department of Justice for criminal prosecution.
I see.
That's the way I'd go about that.
Okay.
But these sheriffs aren't going to do that. If you put a lawful judgment signed by a notary in their hands, file it with the county recorder, they're not going to refuse to operate upon that judgment. They're not. They're not going to put themselves in that kind of a liability for no reason.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, you tie their hands when you do this stuff the right way. It's why you serve your notices when you get a ticket. You're tying the judge and the officer's hands properly. You serve these notices 9 out of 10 times, these cops aren't even going to show up. And the one time they do, you're going to nail their ass to the wall, and that cop will be the one liable to pay the ticket, not you.
I see.
Right. Because their signature is the only one on it that's valid if you sign it right under protest and duress. Signing that next to your name invalidates your signature like it's not even there.
Right.
Well, caller, really is that simple. And people get blown away by the simplicity. Their minds are programmed to overcomplicate everything because they've been programmed to believe everything should be complicated.
All right. Well, caller, I really appreciate your input tonight. But if you don't mind, we're going to move on to another caller. He's a fellow host on the network, so we thank you for your call.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, man. Good questions.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love my group.
Me too, man. Everyone in that group is so nice and helpful, and it's great. I suggest everyone try to get into it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of good people in that group. But I'm going to bring on a very special guest. He's a fellow host of NWO Truth Radio. He came on right about the same time I did, and he took a hiatus for a little bit. He had to, gather his stuff together. But Tuesday nights is usually his slot, but he allowed us to do this show tonight, and we're very appreciative to him. And his name's Cole Johnson. And so, if everybody don't mind, I'm gonna bring him on right now. Hey, Cole, you with us?
Hey, Cole, how you doing?
Doing good, James. Thank you. You guys are doing a great job. Thanks to Rob.
How's it going?
Good, thank you. Again, I'm not fully on board with Sui Juris yet. I don't have a copy of the book yet, but I love what you're doing, and I listen.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you guys are doing this tonight. I just recently talked to a new friend here locally that was expressing aggravations about certain legalities, and so I took that opportunity to say, well, have you heard of, self-governing, Sui Juris? And kind of explain the basics to her, and I believe she's in the group now, so,
What's her name?
Courtney.
I don't recall her offhand, but that's all right. I have a lot of members in the group. I think we're over 2,400 members now.
Mm-hmm. And that's excellent what you're doing. And I wanted to say that, some of the things I heard you guys talking about, the education was right before the break. You guys were talking about,
yes,
it's easier to teach them right the first time than to go back and reprogram somebody to make them forget what they've already been programmed to believe.
Absolutely.
About history, about law, and it's complete bullshit that, I've had that frustration myself, and so I was nodding my head in agreement with you guys when you were saying that, what are they?
Well, here's a prime example for you, if you don't mind me jumping in real quick.
Good.
Real quick, I was explaining this in the group earlier that July 4th, for example, our country did not become independent on July 4th of 1776. The Revolutionary War did not officially end until the signing of the Treaty of Paris in 1783. The reason this July 4th date was chosen has nothing to do with the date that Congress unanimously agreed upon the Declaration of Independence. What it has to do with is an astronomical phenomenon called aphelion. These people are ritualistic, and everything that they do, it has to do with stuff that goes on in outer space. Aphelion marks the greatest distance between Earth and the Sun. This date was chosen to symbolically represent the separation between the new sovereign colonies and England. And that's just a juicy little bit out of history's inaccuracy that I actually got sent to a principal's office once for correcting a teacher upon about the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which wasn't signed until August 2nd, not July 4th.
Wow, really? I didn't know that.
Yep.
Yeah, I heard someone, but you explained it really well, man. We're all made to believe we're celebrating Independence Day, but really it has nothing to do with that. The date was chosen for totally different reasons.
The year isn't even correct. I mean, we didn't truly become independent until 1783, when that treaty was signed and the war ended.
That's right. Yeah, I didn't know anything about that until I heard you speak on that topic on Brandon's show, I believe it was, about 6 months ago.
Right.
And I was like, what the hell is he talking about? But I looked it up, and yeah, there it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love being right.
Hey, Sean, do you have any more to go?
Between me and the average individual is that I've done the research. That's all it is. I've looked into these things and investigated these things firsthand that people just blindly accept, that they believe, that they think they know.
And I mean, you can go back to the Social Security Act. Before that,
the Act.
Yeah, the Act, not law.
It tells you right there, it's pretending to be law.
Right. I mean, it's voluntary servitude is exactly what it is. I mean, it doesn't get any simpler than that. Before that, family births were recorded in the family Bible, correct?
Yep.
I mean,
exactly.
and people...
Right. And that used to be your passport as well as your family Bible.
Right. And see, I'm 40 years old, and I've grew up, and I've lived my whole entire life in this, voluntary servitude. So I had no idea of this, and that's the point, really all of us, we accept our reality as just, this is all historical. This is the way it's always been. No, it hasn't. It hasn't been this way. And, if you can just look at it and analyze it and really see, it hasn't been this way. Somebody made it this way, and it's for their own benefit, not yours. They just
think about it.
For
Don't
your
we
benefit.
really have a duty when we are born to these rights that we are given, these grand gifts that we get from our Creator? Don't we have a duty to protect those? Of course we do.
Absolutely.
Now,
100%
it is,
feel that.
this whole thing, the Sui Juris methodology, it transcends all religion. Everyone of every faith can agree with these principles of law, that we are all equal, that we are all free, that we are all self-governing.
Right. Because, where the rubber meets the road, we're all people. We're all individuals.
Exactly.
We have to deal with each other on a daily basis, and I don't hate nobody. I hate to see somebody lose their job. I hate to see somebody lose their home. I hate to see somebody lose their car, and I ain't even got to know them. It bothers me to see anybody have to go through that. I went through that, at a time in my life, and that's why I'm here today. I wouldn't be on this network if I didn't have to suffer, like I did. But, just about everybody that's on this network has suffered at some point. That's what led you to where you're at today, and it's...
And that's what leads people to my work today.
That's exactly right. It's so important to, when you really start to dig deep, you really need to get in touch with people like Rob, because they're giving you the answers. They're giving you the weapons that you need to reestablish your rights, to gain them back.
And I got to say this real quick.
Free people.
Yes, I earn my living doing this. Yes, I sell my book. Yes, I sell my time. But I do not turn anybody away. I will help anyone, regardless of their ability to pay. Everything I have in the book is there for free in the group files. It can be accessed. I do not withhold information for ransom, financially hostage from anybody. I will help everyone. Those who pay for my time get first priority service. I have no choice but to do that. But I do get around to everyone who messages me within a reasonable amount of time and take care of whatever needs they have. I help everybody.
And you're absolutely correct there. I didn't purchase your book when I started asking these questions, but I started asking these questions in the group, and I got hundreds of answers like within a day. And it was amazing to me to see the people that didn't even know me reaching out. You know, that's
how it should be.
It is how it should be. And I wish
I'm
it was.
glad that the character, the caliber of the people in my group is that high. That's exactly what I expected out of Sui Juris Law members.
And it's because people feel so freed by it, you know. People feel so empowered by it, and they want to share that. People as a whole are good, but you know,
yep,
it's just not that way when you get to the money. The higher ranking government officials, actually all of them,
the money
all doing it for a paycheck.
Yeah.
They've literally gone insane. This is what it comes down to. They're all pretending, and they don't know it. So it doesn't matter whether the schizophrenic knows that he's not Napoleon or not. He's a schizophrenic. That's what these people in office are. They're all schizos. They're all pretending, and they don't know it.
Nothing short of
they're doing a horrible job, too, because they're not even upholding the semblance of law anymore.
And I mean, if you just really sit down and look at it, you hit the nail on the head, Rob. That they're not serving us anymore. They haven't been serving us for a long time. In my entire existence, they haven't been serving me. They don't give two.
They're serving their own pockets, is what they're doing.
That's exactly
Every one
right.
of these
and
courts in this country. Every one of these courts are paid for. Everything that happens in court is paid for by tax dollars. So every single fee that these courts charge every single individual is a crime. It's a double dip. It's just like charging a toll or a tax on a road, which is paid for by the gas tax. It's another double dip. These people are criminal, and they're just creating more and more streams of revenue for themselves off of the back of the people.
Yep, and they use the Rockefeller indoctrination system to steal your minds, to lie to you, and to get you to believe, to get you to love your servitude, to get you to
people need to look
board.
at Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays was a brilliant propagandist, and they still use his methods today to propagandize you.
How do you spell his
He's
last
the one
name?
that got people to accept fluoride.
I mean, it's like people don't even care. You know, that's the thing. You know, when it comes to real matters at hand, people don't care. But let us, like I said earlier, let a celebrity die or let, you know, a celebrity file bankruptcy and, oh, my God, people lose their mind,
and
you know.
Check this out. How did this celebrity die? The celebrity died by trying to do what he pretended to do in movies. Just like that celebrity's not actually a car racer, that act is actually not law. It's the same thing. It's going to crash and burn.
Right. Well, we've got like 5 minutes left here, so Cole, I think you just want to plug your show for next Tuesday, so if you don't mind, go ahead.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, next Tuesday I've been doing a lot of research about this place called Pensmore Mansion. It's about 20 minutes south of my home. My home in Springfield, Missouri. About 20 minutes south is a small town called Highlandville, where a very rich man from Virginia, Stephen Teacoff, has built a home that has been reported to be the third largest private home in the United States at 72,000 square feet. Larger than the White House, and there's things about it that have brought up a lot of speculation about its overall size and the fact that it's reported to be fireproof, bulletproof, bomb-proof, resistant to hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, and they're disguising it all under proving that green technology works and all that kinds of stuff. But the fact that this guy, Stephen Huff, started a company called Overwatch. He has a background in Army and CIA, Army intelligence, CIA background. In '93, he starts a company called Sensor Systems, changes the name in the late 90s to Overwatch. And it's a government contract, so all of his money comes from the government, and he sells them equipment to spy on us. And again, hiding in plain sight. A lot of their products, you can go to their website, overwatchsystems.com, and read about their products, the exact things they're using to spy on us on a daily basis. So all these things combined, plus more, I'll be covering. A lot of these things were talked about on an episode of Jesse Ventura's show, and I have beef with that show because there was a lot of facts that were misrepresented. And if they're going to misrepresent simple facts, you know, who knows what else they're going to misrepresent. So I've done as much research as I can. Right. And I'm going to put it together and next week. So it's called The Pensmore Conspiracy. That'll be Tuesday, December 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Right. I'll listen for sure.
Great. Sounds like an awesome show. And I just want to extend from the whole NWO Truth Radio family, Cole, welcome back, bro. We missed you. We were all worried about you, and it's glad to hear your voice again. And I'm looking forward to the show and more shows in the future. Your family, I just want you to know that from the bottom of my heart. You know, I met you in person. You're the only one in the network that I've met in person. I'd like to meet everybody, but, you know, I understand financial restraints and things of that nature. I would like to meet Rob as well one day. I really would like that. But we got 90 seconds left, so I wanted to extend. I mean, if y'all want to go into the studio hour, we probably have about 30, 45 minutes that we could keep going if you guys want to. For everybody listening,
I'm probably going to jump off the line in a minute.
Oh, okay. Well,
do we have any callers on the line with questions?
Well, actually, my computer just restarted on its own. Piece of shit.
All right.
Oh, that was a good show. I had fun tonight.
Rob, it's always a pleasure having you on.
Man.
Dude.
Thanks a lot, Rob. Thanks a lot.
I
You
love
did awesome,
on.
man. And thanks for everything. Thanks for the book and everything, man.
Yeah, we love
pleasure.
your body of work.
Appreciate it.
We love your body of work.
Yeah, get in touch with me about that deal for sure, and we'll set that up where you get a permit to print 1,500 copies and distribute them as you see fit, and we'll take care of that.
Awesome. Yeah, dude.
Awesome.
Hopefully soon. So thank you all.
Yeah, it sounds like a great plan. You know, but from Sean Auten, James Ward, Rob Johnson, Cole Johnson, and everybody else in the NWO Truth Radio family, we thank you for listening tonight. We hope you learned something, and I'm letting my computer revamp up. I'm going to play a song in the studio hour. We got
this
like
link will
5
archive,
seconds
right?
left. Yeah, it'll go automatically to archive. So anybody wanting to listen
Excellent.
that didn't get to listen live tonight, they can always click on the archive, and I'll post it on my Facebook, and everybody else is welcome to as well. This is
It'll
information
be added to my links also.
Awesome. This is information that we absolutely need to get out to everybody. Everybody. I mean, if you love people, if you care about them, if they're friends of yours, and you want to see a lawful revolution in this country, because that is the peaceful revolution that we all seek. It absolutely is. This is the key. This is the weapon you need. Spread it.
Yep. Good night.
Yep. Good night.
I'm jumping off real quick. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you, Rob.
Take care, Rob. All right. Now, I can't end the show right now because my computer's still restarting. It decided to pick the 10 o'clock hour to restart. James, you still with me?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, the information that we covered tonight, I just wanted to say that, you know, I saw the firelight in you when you read this book. I could see it through the text. You know, it's kind of hard to feel emotions when you read somebody's text, but I could absolutely see the emotions in your text after reading this book. It's very empowering, ain't it?
Yeah, it is, and that's the key to it. It's spiritually empowering, and it's physically empowering when applied to your life.
Right.
You know, people claim to be of God, but they bow to the state, and they don't have to do that, and that's the law, and that's what's important about it, and that's how we can take back our country. You know,
right.
Through massive non-cooperation with evil. But
absolutely, I mean, and you know, and not to toot my own horn, but you know, I brought my dad onto this network, who is a preacher and has been studying the KJV Bible now for 30-something years, the latter part of my life. And he was a Baptist preacher back in the 80s, and he walked away from the Baptist doctrine because he saw corruption in it. And he got introduced to the real truth of the book. And he saw all of it. It's amazing. I mean, I'm going to take the opportunity, if people don't mind, in the studio hour to give my testimony to this fact. You know, me and my dad, we separated when I was about 17. He moved to Kingsport, Tennessee, to take over a vacuum cleaning business. And, you know, like I said, we didn't draw arms with each other. We had no hostility toward each other. We just kind of drifted apart over the years. Well, the last time I talked to him was in 1998, and he had completely quit preaching. He still studied the Bible. Don't get me wrong, as much as he possibly could, but he just quit preaching at that time. And I lost contact with him for over a decade. But it's amazing that he took the path to spiritual awakening, to the spiritual truths, you know, the teachings of Jesus, and what they really were. You know, what you just said a minute ago is exactly right. They've indoctrinated us in a religious sense as well. They teach us every scripture that they want us to know. They don't want you to read the Bible. They don't want you to understand what it's trying to tell you. They want you to just believe what they want you to believe about God, so they can twist it up and use it against you. And that's exactly what they do. But, you know, my dad, he went through that spiritual awakening while we were apart. And while we were apart, he went through the spiritual awakening, but I went through the physical awakening. I saw the corruption in the world. I saw the corruption in the politics. I saw the corruption in the financial sectors, reading books, listening to lectures, documentary after documentary. It just goes on and on. I spent hours of my life. It takes a commitment. You know, we all need to understand this as a people. This takes a commitment on each and every one of us' part to come to the understanding of the truth. But it's a great little story here I got. I've said it before, and I love to say it, so I'll say it again. I lost my home and blah, 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 blah. I moved in with my wife, and I rebuilt, and I got this job, and I worked my butt off to reestablish myself, you know, in this financial slavery we have. And once I got reestablished, you know, I started asking myself, why did this happen to me? I've been working since I was 10 years old. Why did this happen to somebody? I mean, I'm not a criminal. I don't run out here and steal from people. I don't murder. I don't rape. I don't, you know, I'm not a bad person. So why did they pick me to do this to? And, you know, I started digging. But, you know, I got this job where I was isolated in this room. Well, this room had two doors. Through one door was an atheist with all the physical knowledge, and through the other door was a holiness preacher who had all this spiritual knowledge, but he had knowledge of the physical truth as well. So I was cross-referencing these guys back and forth between the two of them, you know, just gaining more and more knowledge. Because, you know, when I was isolated in that room, in a spiritual sense, I really found myself. God found me finally for the first time, and was actually, I thought I was saved for years, but it turns out I was just under conviction. But so anyway, the holiness preacher, he's Vietnamese, and he went back to his homeland to save some of his family, or try to save some of his family, try to expose them to the truth. I guess that's a better terminology for it. He smuggled a Bible into his homeland, which that's illegal. He could have been murdered for that. I mean, literally. So he goes back to his homeland, and he gets back in touch with his father, and he comes back to work. He's telling me all about it. He's just all happy and excited about it. He's like, well, you know the bond between a father and a son. And I'm like, dude, I hadn't talked to my dad in over a decade. And he said, you need to make peace with your father. And I said, well, I've never been at war with him. And he said, well, whatever the reason is, you need to make peace with him. You need to seek him out. You need to talk to him. You need to give him that opportunity. And it kind of made me mad at first. You know, I went back in the room, and I'm like, who is this guy to tell me, you know, I need to get back in touch with whoever. You know, it's none of his business. But the more I started thinking about it, and the more I started praying on it, I was kind of like, you know, I hit a revelation. You know, I'm like, he's right. Maybe I need to make that phone call. So I did. I called my grandma, and my grandma, she's excited to hear my voice. She hadn't heard my voice in about 5 years. And she gave me his number right off the bat, and I called him. He was at work, and I left a message on his phone. He apparently didn't listen to the message, but he saw the missed call, so he called me back. And I answered the phone. You know, he's all business-like. He's like, yeah, you know, blah, 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 blah. You know, this is Tim Auten. How can I help you? And I'm like, hey, Dad. And I got two other brothers, you know, so he thought I was one of them. He was like, Casey? And I was like, no, the oldest one. He said, Sean? And I was like, yeah, and it's just, it's amazing. I can get into divine intervention even more if I can. So I'm going to. It was a magnificent reunion. He was just going on and on and on about, you know, how happy he was to hear my voice and how he always thought about me and blah, 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 blah. And he was like, I want to see you. He said, can you come up here? Me and my wife, we live in York, South Carolina, and we had made reservations to stay in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, which is about an hour and a half away from him already. We'd already done that for our honeymoon. And so I was like, yeah, we're going to be in Gatlinburg next week. And he was like, yeah, great. Yeah, come on up and see me. And so we did. Went up there and seen him, and, you know, he took us out to this barbecue place, and him and my wife was sitting there talking. I went and used the restroom, and I come back. And when I come back, I sat down, and the first words I heard come out of his mouth was, yeah, I heard from a preacher years ago that the Illuminati was running the world, and I just dropped my fork. My jaw hit the table. I mean, literally, I was just like looking at him like in awe, and my old lady was like, oh, God, you know, because she knew what was getting ready to happen. And we went on a 4-hour conversation about all of this. And it's like he was bringing me to the spiritual truth, and I was bringing him to the physical truth. And I could see, and it's hard to explain to people, the divine intervention, because none of that was my doing. Everything just kind of coincidentally happened. You know, I just fell into it, you know, and he fell into me. Everything just worked the way it worked, and it worked the way it worked by an unseen hand. You know, I asked for the truth, and it was shown to me. You know, that's religion, is man searching for God. You will not find God. Okay, it states that clearly in the Holy Bible. God finds you. God's looking for you. He's waiting on you to just drop all your crap and let him in. So, I mean, are you going to let him in? I mean, it's up to you. I'm not trying to push my ideas on anybody. I love humanity. I think people are inherently good. I think they've been deceived for the most part. But just listening to my testimony tonight, and and the fact that people pay for this network. They don't pay me. They don't pay James. They don't pay James Ward. They don't pay Cole Johnson. They don't pay Dennis Ford. None of us makes a dime off of this. As a matter of fact, we donate to the cause because we care. We take time out of spending with our family. We take time that we could be sleeping. I could be asleep right now, but here I am on the phone talking to you guys because we care. I don't want to hear, we're not in the conspiracy business. I'm not in here trying to sell you fluoride filters, or Kool-Aid like Alex Jones is, and I'm sorry to hog up so much time, James, but, that's a very important message. Yeah. And I know you're on here.
We're here to expose the corruption, We're here to expose the corruption because we care, not because we're profiting, because we care about our country and we're worried about our progeny, we're worried about our kids and their kids and you people out there listening and your people. That's why we're here, because we love people and we love this world, and we're seeing it destroyed by people who do not care. Dollars above humanity. And it's a lot deeper than that, but that's what it is on the surface. It's dollars above humanity, and it's killing everybody, and it's poisoning everybody, and it's enslaving the people of the world. And you wonder why people hate America. Just look what our country does in our name every day. And you won't ever hear about it. Like the day Kurt Cobain died, they bombed Iraq. Or Iraq or Iran, I can't remember, but they dropped more bombs in that day than any other day because they knew. They might have killed him, I don't know, but they knew that you wouldn't see it on the news because Kurt Cobain's death, the death of a celebrity, takes precedent in your life. The death of thousands of innocent children, and just horrible.
It is horrible. I mean, what this country was founded on was the principles of the Bible, was the principles of freedom. I mean, Jesus Christ came here to abolish religion. He came here to establish freedom for each and every man who was willing to accept him. I mean, it's that simple. And how sad is it that a man gave his life so that we could be free? A nation of people left their homeland to come to this world, this land we inhabit now, to escape tyranny, to escape oppression, to escape religious persecution, and now we just see it all being taken away. Or being took away. It's gone. I mean, and we want to get it back. I mean, they essentially, if you think about it, James, they stole the love, didn't they?
They did. They stole the love and replaced it with things you got to do to stay alive, and bills you got to pay. And if you're making it, you got to get a bigger house because yours isn't big enough. If you make $100,000 a year, you get a decent house. If you make $200,000 a year, you get a better house. You make $10 million a year, you get a mansion, and you're in just as much debt per dollar you're making because that's the way you're brought up to believe it's supposed to be. They want you in debt. With $10 million a year, you could buy a mansion right away. And then once you got all this money, you love the money more than you love your fellow man. And Jesus told us to love one another, and that was his commandment. He gave one commandment on top of the commandments of God that he asked us to follow, and that was to love one another, and we're not doing that. And that's why we're heading the way we are, because we've been distracted, distracted from what's right.
We've been taught from birth to hate one another, to hate somebody because of the color of their skin, or to hate somebody because of their financial situation, or to hate somebody because of their religious views, or to hate somebody because of their political stance. And it's all a scam. You know, and Rob Johnson exposed that tonight. He didn't expose the whole realm of it, but he exposed a large portion of it, you know, through law. And that
he exposed the solution, in my opinion. The solution was given tonight, and that's why I was so amped up about this show. And especially Christians, you should take this message to heart, because it's the freedom you're promised. You know, it's what we were all given, and what millions of lives were sacrificed, and, you know, blood was shed, you know, for this cause. This battle was waged since the beginning of time, since humanity was created.
Right.
And there's a quote in the book about that, and I suggest everyone get it. And much love to Rob Johnson. Thanks for coming on the show. It's just so important, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, he's a really good guy. He's very informed, and he's. You would think when you listen to Rob, you'd think, oh, he went to Harvard, or he didn't go to none of them schools. The dude he's a high school equivalent, just like the rest of us, but. You know, he talks like a man that is intelligent, because he is, not because he went to some over expensive college and got some, you know, learn how to memorize things. You know, this is a man who took his time, his diligent time, his effort, his hard work, you know, to sit down and do the research and write such a fabulous book like he has. You know, I think it's great that me and you, James, have both read that book. It's important.
Absolutely, man. I think we both agree that
it's the greatest book I've ever read, dude.
I know.
But, you know, people always, you know, and you even said it a couple of days ago, well, I know one book that's better, but I don't consider that a book. I consider that the Word of God. I try to separate that from, you know, literature, you know. But that's just speaking from the faith, you know.
That's true, man. You're right about. Totally agree. But I just had to throw that in there for anyone confused on the subject. But that's our ticket to freedom.
It is. I mean, I've read Jim Marrs' books. I've read so many of his books because I like the dude. I mean, he's, you know, got a lot of information in his books, and I just purchased A.K. Kirkendall's book. I had him on the show a couple of weeks ago, and haven't had a chance to sit down and read it yet. I'm going to get to it, but
yeah, he's a really well studied man, very wise and smart, and even he said he's not of the Christian faith, but he can see the 7 deadly sins being pushed on America, and they are. And if you sit back and look at it, if you don't see it, then, you know, you're not looking. It's obvious to anyone with any perception. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, to understand, you know, what Jesus Christ did when he hung on that cross in 33 AD, and now I'm talking to the Christians. It's, you know, you're not of the Christian faith, but, you know, you can just give it a listen or you can tune it out, whatever. But, you know, when he hung on that cross in 33 AD, he hung on the cross for all of our sins. He paid the ultimate price for my sins 2,000 years ago. I wasn't born. My father wasn't born. My grandfather wasn't born. You know, it can go on and on and on about who wasn't born 2,000 years ago in my family heritage. But he took on my sins. So he already knows. If that's the case, God already knows every sin I'm going to ever commit, past, present, and future. And so, you know, that's the key element. A lot of people don't seem to understand. When you accept grace, you're still going to sin. You know, I heard it, well, it's not a license to sin. No, it's not a license to sin. You don't need a license to sin. You're going to sin.
But through studying his message, you understand that you don't need to sin to be happy, and that you know, it's not what life is about, and then you turn away from sin through the message, you know, and
because you don't make it about sin. Right, you don't make it about sin. The Holy
people
Spirit,
hear
He
Jesus
sets
died on the
abode
cross.
in you. Right.
Right. Absolutely.
When God's searching for you, and He finally finds you, you know, like I just testified to you guys tonight, there's a change in you, you know, and people hear me cussing and stuff, and I want people to understand something about cussing. I've had that brought to my attention, so I want to go ahead and address it while I have the opportunity. I come from a mill town where everybody cussed. Military people and mill workers were all I knew, and everybody cussed. My mama cussed, my daddy cussed, everybody I knew cussed. All my friends cussed from the time I was able to speak on up. And I don't mean to offend anybody with my cuss words, and sometimes I can just be talking and not even know they come out. And so I apologize to any tender ears that's heard me cuss. You know, I don't believe it's a sin. I believe it's a man-made ordinance, but I'm not going to get into that argument. You know, if you believe differently, you know, I respect that, and I won't hold it against you. And I don't want you to hold any of the cuss words that, you know, I've been trained to pretty much do. You know, subconsciously they just come out, you know, especially when I get fired up, you know. And don't mistake my anger or my passion for anger, because I rarely get angry. I'm a very passionate man, and when I get passionate, sometimes, you know, that old terminology comes out. But, you know, it has been brought to my attention that, you know, that there are some young ears that do listen to this network. And so my sincere apologies to anybody whose children have listened to this network and heard me curse. I don't think that that's appropriate for a young audience, and I'll encourage it. I want young people to listen to this show, and so if I need to clean up my act, I'll do it. You know, and to everybody on the network, you know, we don't censor by any means, but, you know, you need to take that into consideration, that there might possibly be some young ears out there listening to you, and if you want to reach them with the truth, like we were talking about earlier tonight, it's easier to reach young people than it is old people who's been trained in this ideology. You know, so if we really want to reach some young people, choose your words wisely. I'm going to try to do the same. So, you know, I wanted to convey that message tonight.
Yeah, I tend to cuss a lot too, and it's not because it's not for any other reason than it's just the way I learned to talk, you know. And you know, curse words are powerful, and the music we played tonight was real powerful, and it had a lot of curse words, but the message is so important. You know, I really don't think it. You know, it might diminish it for you, but for me, it implies, because the artist doesn't cuss in most of his music, but it implies the importance of this topic. It is the only thing that should matter to you is your sovereignty, not your slavery. And
right.
We took off the kid gloves tonight, and I think we all got big boy pants. So if you were offended, I am sorry for that. But it wasn't done to offend you. It was done to convey a message. And I appreciate you, Sean, for giving the warning before you played the second song there. And
right.
And you know, we're not here to offend you. We're here to help you. And if you get bent out of shape about it, you know, think about what you're doing. You're taking the message and making it about your righteousness above ours. We all sin differently, so don't judge us for our mistakes. And you know, we're not here to offend you. Like I said, we're here to help, and we love and care about all humanity. And keep that in mind. We're not here to do anything to people.
I haven't met. I mean, you're exactly right, James. I haven't met half of these people in this movement. Well, really, nobody except for Cole. And I mean, I care that much. I've reached out to people all across the globe, as has every host on this network. I mean, we do what we do on Facebook. We do what we do on this network. We do what we do in our everyday life because we care. And I don't want my curse words or my cuss words or whatever you want to call them to impede on the message. The message, you're exactly right, is the most important thing. If you would have just tuned out all the cuss words, I'm going to call them cuss words, I always get them confused. If you tune out all the cuss words in that last song that we played at the break and really just listen to what he's trying to say, he's spot on. He couldn't say, Rob couldn't have said it better than what Payday said. He's exactly right. They're talking to you so tender, but with utter content, because they need your consent to get you on the train. As long as you're oblivious to this, you agree to surrender. I mean, just think about that.
You belong to the state. Just think about it.
Yeah, just think about it. You're owned. And until you decide to stand up and do something about it, you will continue to be owned. You'll continue to pay taxes. You'll continue to pay your registration fees and your driver's license fees and all the fees and the paperwork. And do you ever notice, have you ever sat back and just thought, why's life got to be so hard? Why is there so much paperwork involved in life? It shouldn't be this way, should it? Absolutely not. The man tonight gave you the solution to rid yourself of all of that crap. I mean, yeah, you'll have to file paperwork. You'll have to send out notices signed by a notary republic, but that's the real law. You're actually using your rights rather than consenting to what you know is criminal, what you know is fraud. Deep down in each and every one of us' heart, you've got to know it's fraud. If you don't know it's fraud, then I don't know what to say to you. You're listening to the wrong show.
In the Bible, it says many will strive to get into heaven, few will, or something along those lines. I'm not quoting the Bible, but I am paraphrasing from memory. So think about that. It says that the mark of the beast will be given to everyone. The computer chip might be the mark of the beast, but maybe it's your voter registration card because you're putting another God before the Creator. Think about it. I mean, if you look at the facts, you're submitting your will to and if you look up the word God in the Hebrew, it's Elohim, and can be is defined as many things. One of them being a ruler, or a ruler of men, being a king, and you're bowing to another man, and that's what Jesus came to remove from the earth through his message. He really did. And his grace, and the grace gives us the opportunity to defend our ability to do these things by doing things that wouldn't normally be allowed. Like I'm not going to say it, but that's what it was all about, and that's why I love the message of Christ. And this really, I was so lost, I didn't know what to do. All I could do was pray. But now we have I have a way. I mean, this has been out for a while, but I finally understand, and this is my passion now.
Right. Well, I mean, it's my passion too, bro. I mean, and I get attacked for it. I've got a lot of atheists that are friends of mine, and I don't impede on their faith, because whether they like it or not, believing in nothing is believing in something. So you've got a faith, and and I've been attacked on that end, and I've been attacked for being a dispensationalist and called a heretic, and I've been attacked for speaking out against the state of Israel, for being a anti-Semitic, which is completely made up. I've been attacked by the sheeple for being, what do they call me, a conspiracy theorist. So I love that term. Yeah, that really gets my blood boiling. So, I mean, I get attacked on every element, but I stand strong. I stand strong in the physical truth, and I stand strong in the spiritual truth. And I don't try to push my faith on people. I talk a lot about, my faith on this network, but I'm not pushing it on you. It's my ideas. It's I had an atheist one time. He's like, why do you believe in a book? I said, I don't believe in a book. I believe in God. He said, well, what makes you believe in God? And I said, faith, and faith alone. There's nothing else. He hasn't manifested himself in front of me and said, hey, dude, I'm God. Jesus hadn't come over here and said, hey, you need to walk this path. I mean, nobody knows, Jesus nor God has actually shown up in front of me visually to where I could see them. It's just something I believe. You know, and you'll find that in Islam, you'll find that in Buddhism, you'll find that in Taoism, Confucianism, whatever religion or faith. I don't like to call it religion, I like to call it faith. Whatever faith you follow, whatever faith you believe in, each and every one of them say the same thing. And, you know, and I don't know, I'm not God. Maybe he's a part of all of that. Maybe he's a part of none of it but Christianity. I don't know. I just chose the faith of Christianity. That's what I chose on a personal level. But I want everybody to understand that I believe in freedom. And so if you're Islam or you're Buddhism or whatever the case may be, that's your thing. You do your thing. I'm going to do my thing. You know, I would like for you to come over here and join me, but that's not my choice. That's yours. You know, and whatever choice you decide to make, I'm not going to hold it against you. And I don't want you to hold anything against me for what I do. You know, that's the epitome of freedom, you know. Be your own self-governance. You know, if what Rob preached tonight, you know, what he teaches in his book, that's exactly right. It's freedom, dude. I mean, are we free or are we not? Are we going to sit over here with our petty little differences and attack each other over our, you know, our belief system or our political stance or our, you know, financial situation or, you know, the color of our skin? Because if you do that, you're sheeple. You're part of the system that they created. An old world order that set this in place, that set the wheels in motion a long time ago. They're trying to get you back into it. Are you going to submit to it or are you going to fight against it? You want to be free? If you want to be free, then you want everybody to be free. If you don't want everybody to be free, just yourself, then you're a selfish bastard. I'm sorry, I'm going to use a cuss word there. It's what you are. You're selfish. You're thinking for only yourself. I mean, we need to collectively understand that you have your own rights and your own mind, and the choice is up to you. Whether you're right or whether you're wrong, the choice is up to you. I can't make that decision for you. But I like to get on my pedestal in the studio hour.
No, man. There's a bunch of people asking for a few people asking for the archive though, but you know we're doing a good show here. I think I really wanted to approach this from a Christian standpoint because most of the people I tried to reach out today are Christian or at least believe in a one true God, the Creator of all things, and you know that's all I ask for people that I stand with is that you believe in God because you know with that comes a sense of being worthy, you know, in my opinion, being worthy and not willing to bow to man so easy. Or right. You know, it seems to me like that people who don't have God in their life, no matter what faith you are easier to convince of the whole humanism thing, which is
right.
Just a different form of slavery when you boil it down.
Well, I mean, you think about it, James. My dad says this all the time. You don't get wisdom and knowledge of God on the mountain. You get it in the valley. Most of the people listening, most of the people listening to this network, heck, most of the people in the free world today, well, unfree world today, they're all in the valley, and that's why they're listening to shows like this because they want to understand why the things that has happened to them has happened to them. I'm one of them. I'm with you. I'm right there with each and every one of you. I mean, I hit rock bottom. I slept in my car for 2 weeks, for crying out loud. I mean, if it wasn't for my beloved wife now, I wouldn't even have a home. You know, one of the most heartbreaking things I ever went through in my life was when I was losing my home, and I was dropping my daughter off at her mom's, my ex-wife's house, and she looked over at me, and I'll never forget this as long as I live. Brings tears to my eyes every time I say it. She was like, Daddy, I got a place to sleep. Where are you going to sleep? and I didn't have an answer. You know, I'm looking over at this little 4-year-old girl, and I don't know what to say. You know, but I comforted her. I didn't tell her the truth. I didn't say, well, Daddy's gonna sleep in his car tonight. I said, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna go sleep at Grandma's house. I'll be fine. But I didn't. You know, just pride got in the way. I could have slept there, but I didn't. But I wouldn't want to tell her that. I wouldn't want to tell my child, Daddy's gonna sleep in his car. I'll be okay. I'll be cold, but all right. I'll be all right. You know, it's got to break her heart. So, but this to see her concern for me, to see, her wanting my well-being. Once I got back gathered up on my feet, I never wanted to see that happen again. But to make sure that didn't happen again, I needed to understand why it happened to me in the first place. That's what got me on the path I'm on. Everybody on this network, you can attest to that at some point or another. And if you can't, but you're listening to this show for, because you're a friend of James or you're a friend of mine, and you're just curious about what we're talking about, that should strike a chord with you, because James, I'm sure you've had some bad stuff happen to you in your life, whether you want to talk about it or not.
I walked in the valley for 26 years, brother. I mean, I know what you mean by that. I mean, it took that from me, and I always fought what I knew was right for some reason. I don't know. But I'm over that, and that's the beauty of grace, man. We can be forgiven and move on and change our ways, and it's just, I'm loving it.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome when you think about where you came from and where I came from, and now here we are, two Christian men having a conversation in the studio hour, on a network about change. To me, that's beautiful. If nobody's listening, and if nobody ever listens to the studio hour, it's something to me. This is important to me, to the fact that I can sync up with somebody. I can, somebody can feel what I'm saying. If it's just one person, it's like I say all the time, I'd love to have 330 million Americans behind me listening to the show, but I'm not asking to be your leader. I don't even want to be your leader. But if I can just reach one person, two people, and James, you feel the same way. If you can just reach 3 or 4 people out there, we're making a difference. We're making a change, real change, not change Obama promised you, or Bush, or any of the rest of them clowns that have completely corrupted our law and our finances and everything else. We're the real change. And not just me and you, James, each and every one of us listening to this network, each and every one of us in this movement. Whether you're just doing music, truth music, whether you're on a talk show, whether you're, just doing it in your everyday life, you're making a difference. And the truth is a lonely place, man, and I know each and every one of us can attest to that. I can clear a room in a minute when I start talking about the truth. People get up and walk out, and I'm standing there talking to myself. But they can't unhear what they hear. You know what I'm saying? If they can just get a little bit of truth out of what we say, and just think about it one day. Maybe one day just something will happen that it'll hit them like a brick wall. It happened to me. I used to be asleep. James, you used to be asleep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a depressing thing to go through, man. But that's the beauty about this book, is you don't have to learn the deception you've been exposed to so much to realize, the full length of it, to regain your sovereignty and, claim your God-given rights. And it's just awesome. And
But
I'm getting tired.
You ever read that had a solution, right?
Yeah.
That's
right. It's the first thing I've ever heard that was a solution. I was stumbling for years, like, what are we going to do? And it's like, it all was like violent revolution turning into a Hunger Games scenario. It's the only thing I could ever see coming of it. But through the power of God and the common law, God-given rights and common law, it would all be legal, and that's the key, I think. So.
Right. Well, I know you're getting tired, and I'm getting tired too. I'm about ready to turn in myself. My computer's it just lost its complete mind over here. I have no control over the studio right now, so listeners might have to hear some dead air or whatever, but from myself and James Ward, James, I'm glad you did the show tonight, man. I hope it inspired you to do more shows. You're welcome on this network. I'm absolutely sure. I'd love to see you, become a host yourself. I'm not a selfish person by no means. I don't try to hog the network. I try to bring on like-minded individuals. I feel like that's my task. Dennis, he's kind of the same way. We invite, like-minded individuals to get on here and talk about, whether you're giving personal testimony or whether you're talking about corruption, whatever the case may be. We welcome it. We stand for truth and Go ahead.
I just want to say thanks for having me on and letting me do the show, man, and it was an awesome thing, and I'm glad to have Cole back. I was missing his Bible study show,
yeah.
I hope you don't think I tried to debo his spot, but I just think he was out doing his thing, and I'm glad he's back.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad he's back too. Oh, you still with us, Cole?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I'm listening quiet, man. We didn't know.
That's one thing I do. I mean, when it's my mic, I'll hog it for a minute, but if it's someone else's show, I just try to hang back as much as possible. And it's your show tonight, so I'm on board with what Sean was saying. I think you should do a routine if you want to. But yeah, Tuesday is kind of my night.
Definitely interested in, but yeah, I don't want to take anybody's spot. If there's a spot open any night, short term, if I'm available, I'm there to do it. I'll figure something out, and it's important to keep these shows going and give the people something to go to, so they don't have to listen to the Fox and the CNN and the CBS, the constant BS and all that, and give us all something productive to listen to. So yeah. Anytime anybody needs a fill-in, I'm there, or a guest, or someone just to share the airtime with them, just hit me up on the phone or on the Facebook. I'm here.
Well, that's usually how it works on the network. I mean, we usually bring somebody on, and it's not really so we can fill them out. It's so that they can fill their self out, and see if, it's a fit for them, if it's something they're interested in doing. And, I never give the password out to the studio ever. That's something that was given to me in confidence, and I respect that confidence, and I'll defend it with my life, but through concessions and to make sure that everybody else is on board with it, man. I mean, if it's something you're interested in, my time slot's got moved to Thursday nights, but my schedule's so chaotic, it's so hard for me to be a regular host, and I love the fact that people, want me to be on the network, but, I don't feel like it's a necessity that I be the host. I can be a caller just as well as a listener or a host, whatever the case may be. But, Thursday nights is my time slot, and if you want to join me on regular Thursdays and see if it's a fit for you, and we'll just go from there, man. Just see what's
absolutely up. Man. Count me in. Like I said, I love it. I really love the shows. I love listening to them. But whenever I was just listening, I was like trying to talk to the phone, like, ask this question. But, just for a better understanding, because people, we all have our gifts and we all have, things we're good at. And mine is asking questions, I think, and that lead people to good answers. And, that's what I feel I'm good at. So I'm going to keep doing it. So I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, man, absolutely. You don't find truth if you don't ask questions. I tell my kids that all the time. If you don't ask why, what if, where, when, how, if you don't ask those questions, if you just sit back there and listen to whatever and just accept it as truth without asking a question, then you're sheeple, and I don't want my kids to be sheeple. I don't want my wife or anybody I care about, for that matter, Nobody in my life, I don't want them to be sheeple. So I encourage everybody to ask questions. And if you catch me in something I'm wrong about, hey, I'll admit it.
Absolutely.
Only a fool claims that he's got it all figured out, because there's so much, it's crazy. I think it's like I said, my computer's still acting bluey. Cole, are you available to end the show?
Maybe. Let me try. Hold on.
All right. Yeah.
Can someone post the event link in the Facebook, the link in the Facebook event? There's some people trying to hear the show, and I want to be able to listen. So.
Yeah. Well, what's up with that is, as soon as the show goes off the air, it usually takes about 10, 20 minutes, and then it'll be automatically archived. And so whatever the direct link was to the show originally, they can click on that same link, and it'll take them to the archives.
Okay, awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah, it won't be archived right off the bat. So if they try to click on it right now, they're going to hear nothing. Not until we hang up, and about 20 minutes after we hang up, it'll get archived. So.
Okay, I think I can end the episode if you want me to.
Yeah, if you don't mind, go ahead and play Climate Change on the way out, and then end it for us, if you don't mind. Yeah. All right. So Sean Auten, James Ward, Cole Johnson, Rob Johnson, everybody that was involved in tonight's show, and all the listeners, we love y'all. God bless. See you on the next episode.
God bless.
What can I get with 2.3?
Ice caps are melting, and polar bears are drowning.
The global warming alarm is dressed up as science.
You might have to sacrifice,
but it's not